I'm Ebo.
Welcome on a Monday. How are we looking? How are we looking? I am thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be alive. I'll tell you about that coming up. Holy crap. Good to have you. After a very fun and event-filled weekend, to say the very least. What a weekend. Brewers get 2 out of 3. Bobby Portis is back as free agency is off and running, even though technically it doesn't get underway for another whatever amount of hours. You have got, let's see, what else do we have? There's discussion regarding the Green Bay Packers and how actually elite they are. We'll get into that discussion coming up today. But really, it was kind of just a recap of the weekend. We're efforting towards the 4th of July. We've got Grant. Are we here on? We're not here on Friday, are we?
Well, I was not planning to be.
Okay, we're not here. I didn't.
If you really want to be on the air, Bill, we can make something work.
Yeah,
I just figured. I sometimes assume on your behalf with holidays, which I shouldn't do. But for the 4th of July, I figured you'd want off.
It's weird because in all the other places I've worked, it was like if it was before 4 o'clock, you worked. If it was after 4 o'clock, you didn't. So it's kind of nice that we just kind of assume that on some of these holidays we are not here, which is kind of cool. So I wanted to be sure because I wasn't sure what my plans were. I got to admit, I'm less than 2 weeks away from vacation. So Kristen wants to go do stuff on Thursday night and then on Friday and Saturday. And I'm like, I'm kind of like just in vacation mode. I just want to get everything ready, get everything packed. And then a week from Friday, out the door and just completely unplug, veg, do nothing. So, but I'm going to have to figure that out. Not quite sure if that's the way things are going to go. I have a lot of stuff from the weekend. So I want to get into all of that. Had a great time at the Big River Rally. The ride on Saturday was spectacular. I'll get into that maybe a little bit later on. But I got up yesterday morning. During the ride on Saturday, it was hot and everything, but it was funny because we're riding through the hills. Oh my God, just such beautiful areas out there. And I want to go ride like on my own one time and just go ride. And just wherever I stop. And just wherever I get lost, I get lost. I just want to go ride. So in the valleys and up on top of the mountains, and you got these breezes, and it's like, this is great. And then you'd stop and you'd be like, holy mackerel, it is hot. It is really hot. And you kind of remember you got to keep, hydrating all throughout the day, which I did. I drank like 2 big Gatorades and I was drinking water at every stop, and I wasn't drinking beer or anything. I think I had 1 beer the entire day, but I got a headache. And we ended up back at the fest grounds on Saturday afternoon. I got a headache, and we ended up going over to the Starlight Lounge, and it was really nice because it was cool in there. And because we got back to the fest grounds about 4 o'clock, it was cool in the Starlight Lounge. We had, oh my God, thin mint martini. Holy mackerel. Oh, that made my pants move. So I had that, couple of big things of water. We sat up there and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back to the hotel, and I'm going to take a leave. I'm just going to take it easy for a little bit because I don't know if it was like heat or if it was just a headache or whatever it was. So I went back, and it just turned into this migraine. And I don't get these very often, very rarely, maybe 2 a year at most. And it started to kind of where it just feels like somebody's just gripping the top of your head. So I laid down and I ended up falling asleep. So I missed drowning pool, which sucks. I missed drowning pool, but I was there for Texas Hippie Coalition and we had a great time. And I ended up, I woke up at like 4 a.m. because I went to bed so early. I woke up at 4 a.m. I'm like, you know what? I'm wide awake. I'll just go. So I got up. I was home by about 6:30 in the morning and wide awake. I thought I'll start my day. And then Kristen woke up and she said, hey, let's take the boat out. So we ended up going to Lake Winnebago. And, we got up there about noon because I took my time and she had some things to do. So I picked her up and then we went to Lake Winnebago and we had a great time. We went to this sandy bottom area, which is about 4 feet of water. You throw the anchor out, you just stand in the water and you got a floaty or whatever. And you got some beverages, you're listening to music, and there's a lot of boats there. And it's just like euphoric. So then we got hungry and we went around, and there's a place called TJ's, and we drove around on the lake over to TJ's. And as we were at TJ's, the winds kicked up and the storm started to come. And I said, okay, we got to get going. We got to get out of here. And we didn't really make it in time. And it got bad. Now, the one thing about Lake Winnebago is it's not deep. So anytime you get wind, I mean, any kind of a stiff wind, it becomes bad. And we went from being a really nice kind of, rolly type of day on the water to it took us almost an hour and a half to get back to where Kristen was crying. She was panicking, thinking we're going to go over. I just kind of hugged the shoreline and I just kept saying, hey, look, I've been through this before. I was through this before on a really big lake down at Lake Cumberland where it got really nasty, really bad. We're only in a 21-foot boat. You do have a fear of capsizing, but I'm also thinking to myself, look, we're in 6 feet of water, 8 feet of water. I mean, throw a life jacket on. Worst comes to worst, we can get to the shoreline. And I said, just keep your head down because there's waves coming over the front of this thing now. And I got the bilge on and it's bilging it out. And finally, the weather just broke after about an hour and we ended up making it back. But it was frightening because it goes from, 1 or 2 foot waves to all of a sudden 6 foot waves. And for my boat, that's a little bit much. But we ended up making it back. And you just got to remember, I've done this before. My dad had me boating since I've been a kid. You just got to head into them. You got to go out. You got to ride them. You got to ride the throttle up and down. And you got to work it. It's a lot of work. But you got to you got to do it. My dad actually took me out in a 17-foot boat in the Ohio River when I was a kid and put me in really just gargantuan waves and bad situations to learn how to get through this in case it ever happened because he knew I loved boating. And your training kicks in and we ended up making it back and we got back to the dock. And even when we got back to the dock, which was in a little cove, it was still, the waves were beating the hell out of the boat. And we ended up getting it out and we, pulled it apart. And then we got into the car. And as we got into the car, she just broke down, just started crying because she had a bad experience when she was a kid and sailing out in the ocean at a sailing school where the boat capsized because they were in pretty big waves. And she kind of had a freak out. And I understand that. But we made it back. It was all good. We ended up, I got her home and we ended up getting a little bit of dinner and then, had a drink and then got home and took it easy last night. But I was kind of like, whew, made it. So that was my weekend. I went from extreme heat to a migraine to a great day, having a few beverages, eating a terrific meal, and then dealing with that and then getting home last night. And that was my weekend. So there's never, ever a dull moment when you hang out with us. How's the wedding? How was the wedding?
The wedding was good.
Yeah.
It was very nice. I had never been to Fort Atkinson before. I've never been through Cambridge, Wisconsin either. I knew someone in college who was from Cambridge. So I always, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, I kind of know where that is. And I know, what a beautiful little town. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Right on, what is that, on 12, east of Madison. So I drove through there.
I don't know.
It's beautiful. I actually, I had to stop and buy a card because I forgot. So I stopped at the Quick Trip. The Quick Trip in Cambridge is beautiful. So, and then pulled some money out of the ATM for the gift. And I had my dress clothes on too. So the cashier completely and totally knew what I was doing.
Right.
She's like, yeah, have fun at the wedding. I'm like, yeah, I obviously planned ahead for the gift.
Right.
So although I normally give cash, I just would prefer not to do it an hour before getting to the wedding.
Right.
So the wedding was good. Danced and, had drinks and, the whole thing. So that was nice.
Cigars, right? Did you have a cigar?
Yeah, there was a cigar bar. I didn't, it was the cigar that I had was an acid.
Okay. They're flavored.
It was very sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're very flavor infused. Like the Macanudo M's, those leaves actually hang in a cocoa plant where they just kind of absorb it. Whereas acid actually infuses their leaves. And although I will say the Acid 20th anniversary cigar is fantastic. That's a silver wrapper. That's fantastic. But the rest of them, that's a little bite for me. And I don't mind little sweet, but yeah, that's. It
was a little cloying. Like, okay, It wasn't bad. I just got it because it was the cheapest one. Honestly, They had in between the dinner and the reception. I think. They had a bourbon cigar bar outside, so you could go up and it was like $25, and you could get they had all the crap that you talk about, Buffalo Trace and Blanton's and all this stuff. So you get a little cup of bourbon and a cigar for like $30. So it was kind of cool. I'd never been to a wedding where they had that before.
That's kind of nice. Yeah. Usually, like, my go-to for bourbon is like Angel's Envy. That's a really good bourbon. I'll tell you this, and people always think I'm crazy. And I've done a piece on it before on when I've done some of my lives on like TikTok and stuff. Jesse James bourbon. There is not the stuff that looks like the same bottle as, say, a Jack Daniels. there's a higher end single barrel that is fantastic. And it's funny because I've got bourbon snobs that I did this at my Christmas party where I got a friend of mine who's very, very into bourbon. I mean, he's like a connoisseur and can tell you everything that it tastes. And I said, I don't want you to look. I'm just going to pour it for you. And I poured it and he went through it and he's like, this is really good. And he was kind of going through all the flavors and what he could taste. And he started like, is this the Blanton's single barrel, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, nope. Is this the Blanton's that he thought it was the Blanton's that goes to Japan because there's a different blend for them. And he's like, because it's got nope, that's not it. And I told him, he went, no way. I said, I swear to God, the high end. So if you ever find it, which it's a rarity, but if you ever find it, grab it because it's amazing, amazing, amazing stuff.
So it's the Japanese Blantons?
There's a Japanese Blanton's. There's a Blanton's that's made for China. They come in different color bottles, but the Jesse James bourbon, the single barrel, if you ever find it, it is fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. So anyway, we've gotten way off track early on, but good stuff today.
This beats the hell out of talking about what the Brewers did yesterday.
Yeah,
for a couple
God,
minutes.
they just peed down their leg. Jason said, have you ever had Drew Estate's Java cigar? I have. Yes, I have. So matter of fact, Jason, I was at the Drew Estate did one of our cigar dinners last year, and they had those, which was fantastic. You know what I'm looking forward to is when we go to Sturgis is heading back out to Deadwood, which is distributed by Drew Estate. I can't wait to get back out there. Oof, can't wait to get. So, they kind of peed down their legs yesterday. They had bases loaded. I'm like, how do you not get another run in? How do you not get another run in? I get it. Look, they've been scoring runs almost at will. And if you're Murph, you're probably like, look, this team's been hitting. They've been clutch. Just let them go up and rip it. I understand philosophically, but you're right there on the verge of getting the sweep. The Cubs have lost. You're within a run, right, 90 feet away of cutting that lead down to a game. And I'm sitting there just like, oh my God. And so anyway, long story short the bullpen didn't have their best moment yesterday, and Brewers couldn't get in that extra run, and it was disappointing. And I think at least the Cubs lost, so the Brewers are still only a couple of games back, but there was just such an opportunity there. But they won the series. I guess you look at it and say, hey, you know what? You won the series. Nice job. Kudos. And you just keep on winning series. That's all you can do. But it was right there for the taking. It was right there for the taking, and the Brewers just they couldn't get it done. It was so frustrating. So anyway, all of that being said, we'll talk about the Brewers. And you had mentioned when we were texting back and forth this morning, Contreras. He's such a. If you were listening to Priester over the weekend talk about Contreras and what he means behind the plate, and it's like you on one hand you're that's the master. He is the pitcher whisperer. I'm listening to Priester talk about him and about the game that he calls and the defense that he has and yada. I'm just on and on and on. And I'm thinking to myself, God, they're so lucky to have this guy right now. When you find pitchers that just go, man, this guy just makes me so incredibly comfortable. And this, and you're thinking, oh, that's great. But on the other hand, offensively speaking, woof. You're watching him just struggle.
It'd be one thing if he was bottom of the order guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if he was Bryce Terang or Caleb Durbin, where you don't really expect much offensively anyway, so anything that you get is a pleasant surprise. Like he's supposed to be your second or third best hitter, and he's hitting in that spot in the lineup.
Right.
So it's really, really hurting the team.
Right. I agree. It's frustrating. But how much does his pitch call, his ability to hold runners, his defense, how much does that play into wins and losses versus, I mean, at the very least, move him down in the lineup. Put him around guys that can be maybe protecting him on a more consistent basis. I mean, I don't know what to do. But it's so frustrating right now. So frustrating. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Let's do this. We'll take a quick break. Cool thing is Bob Nightingale coming up bottom of the hour. Bob Nightingale. Now, the last time we talked to Bob was the guy that was out at spring training talking about when Mark Antanasio said, let's just have some fun. And we'll talk with him this time.
Where did that come from?
Because that was
awesome.
That was a steaming pan load. So that that was the last time we heard from Bob. So we'll talk with Bob coming up here bottom of the hour because right now the Brewers are making the charge. Brewers best team in baseball since May 13th or May 18th. So man, it's fantastic that the Brewers are playing this good, have kind of reignited the fan base. Then obviously you've got Mizorowski, who's really giving everybody a shot of adrenaline right in the arm. So a lot of good stuff going on there as well. We'll talk with Bob Nightingale coming up here bottom of the hour. Stay tuned. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
And now for the Pella play-by-play, here's Jeff Levering.
Thanks, Gina Della from Pella. What a beautiful day to have new windows and doors installed.
Every day is beautiful because Pella installs year-round during all seasons.
And as Pella goes into another windup, it's so hard to guess that next pitch. The customizations seem endless.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive. Pella has a product line for every budget.
And if it is time for a major upgrade, rest easy by scoring no interest and no payments for up to 2 years.
Pella also provides a free in-home consultation, which includes a no-obligation quote.
That's always a great play because working with one of Pella's design experts is such a wonderful, no-pressure get-together. I know this from experience.
With a range of affordable options and products assembled in the USA, you can get the look you want at a price you can afford.
And there's no reason to wait with this incredible deal going on.
Get no interest and no payment for up to 2 years.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. 6/30/2025.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
It's Major League Baseball, and, you can poke fun at the Rockies' record, but the guys they threw out there to pitch today were very, very good, like as good as you can get. The kid that started was great. The guys they brought in, very, very good, and they held us at bay.
Welcome back in. Those are the words of Murph. Murphy. Manager, skipper. Your Milwaukee Brewers. Good to have you back as portion of the program. Brought to you by 4th of July Grilling, baby. Yeah. Our friends at Burn Pit Barbecue. Go to burnpitbbq.com. That is burnpitbbq.com. They are veteran-owned, based right here in the state of Wisconsin, in Racine, Wisconsin, to be exact. And if you're going to do some grilling this weekend, you can order it today. It'll be in your doorstep, most likely by Thursday. There you go. Then you're grilling. Oh, so good. Go to burnpitbbq.com. That is burnpitbbq.com. Brewers get the win over the weekend. Wins over the weekend. They get 2 out of 3. It just, man, I'll tell you this. It was frustrating yesterday, to say the very least, just for the fact that they had the win right there in their hands, and they ended up letting it slip away. And I get everything that, people had to say. I'm sitting there watching it on my phone. I'm watching it at the bar yesterday. And it was, I was watching people say, I can't believe they didn't bunt. You got to suicide. You got to come back. You got to win. You got to fight. But they've also had clutch hits. They've also had homers. They've been a team that's gone station to station. I mean, they've been winning. So, since May 18th, they're the best team in baseball. It is what it is. It just got away.
I think it was extra frustrating because it was Orlando Arcia, former Brewer in the 9th.
Right.
And also, I don't know that I'm super angry about yesterday's game because while it was a bad loss, I think sometimes it's just not your day. And I think Rocky's pitching was just dialed in. And I think had the Brewers tried to bunt or do something, it just wasn't working for them. The frustrating thing is they were 1 out away from having a perfect week, because I think I said, and I think you agreed, if you can take 2 of 3 from either the Pirates or the Rockies and sweep the other one, you know what I mean? If you can win, what would that be? 5 of 6? That would have been perfect. Obviously winning all 6, but if you could win 2 of 3 and get a sweep this week, and they were 1 out away from doing exactly that. But considering they won both series and the Cubs are still struggling, I think for late June, they're doing pretty well.
Yeah. And again, you're right. For late June and the fact that they've been able to kind of claw their way back into this thing. You would love to see, the Cubs continue to falter a little bit, but it's it's 2 teams battling, and the Cubs are a really good baseball team. And I hate to admit that, but they are. And the fact that the Brewers have been even better through this stretch is fantastic.
And now we've talked about the Brewers' upcoming opponents. They have the Dodgers and the Mets, 2 of their final 4 opponents in the first half. And they might catch the Mets at a good time. They're awful right now. Steve Cohen tweeted, he put out a statement yesterday. He's like, I didn't expect this. This is terrible. So it might work out where, the Brewers go from the Pirates and the Rockies. All of a sudden they have the Mets, but they catch the Mets at the perfect time. Hopefully they keep this rolling.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
I know they have Miami first, but I'm just looking down the road a little bit.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Look, if you can, and we really, I haven't taken a look at this, and we're going to get into the Bob Nightingale coming up here bottom of the hour, but I want to do this real quick. And I know I shouldn't be trying to search stuff while I'm on the air, but I'm going to do it, damn it, because I don't care. So you've got basically the Mets, the Marlins, the Dodgers, and Washington coming up. Those are the series. Boy, what is your win total hope? And there's no 4-game series, so basically 12 games left. 8-4.
I think I'd take that.
8-4. I think 8-4 would be a hell of a way to go.
Just win your series.
I guess just keep winning 2, 4, 6, 8. If you win 2 games per series, it's 8-4 over the next 4 series, 12 games. 7-5, not bad. 2 games over. I don't think you want to split, because that means you would have probably gotten swept at some point. But yeah, that's 8-4. I think is where I think in any combination thereof, 8-4 would be a really good way to go. You got, and put it this way, you're going into New York, and you're pitching Peralta, Mizorowski, Quintana. You know, that's not a bad way to go. What's really weird, because then you start, I shouldn't say weird, then you start the Miami series with the guy that's been really hot in Priester. Patrick would be your weakest link, then right back to Peralta. So, man, that's as long as they keep hitting. Is there anybody in that rotation right now that you look at and go, yeah, if that guy goes to the hill, they don't have a shot? Because even Patrick hasn't been bad.
Well, that's the thing. Yesterday, we're all nitpicking Patrick while watching his start. Yeah, he's probably not the guy. And what did he pitch? 5 or 6 shutout innings?
Right.
He did the job.
Right. So I'm kind of like, well, there is no matchup right now that I look at. You know, the other one that's really going to be cool on July 7th, coming up next Monday. Mizorowski goes against Kershaw.
That's fun.
At American Family Field. Yeah. That'll be a good one. But I'm like, there is no game, no matchup that I look at this point and I go, yeah, the Brewers. Because, I mean, even the Skeens matchup, you thought, oh, boy, I don't know if they're going to be able to win that game. I mean, this could be the first loss for Mizorowski, and he could end up losing a game 1-0, you know. And then they played it 4 against Skeens, and Skeens got frustrated. He was turned around, and he was like not taking throws back from the catcher right away because he felt he was being squeezed in the strike zone, and he was pissed off, and the Brewers went on to win that game. And Mizorowski just pitched incredible. There is no game right now that I look at and I go, yeah, they don't have a shot. Because this team's hitting the baseball and their pitching has been this good. You know, the guy that can be, you know, kind of schizophrenic when it comes to pitching, one day he's really good, one day he's really, can be Peralta. Because there's times that he's on and he's very efficient with his pitches. And then there's times where he pitches okay, but he's got 90 pitches by the 4th inning.
Yeah, we were watching that version of Peralta when we were in lacrosse.
Yeah.
With Phillies, yeah.
So that's the only guy that I look at and I go, you know.
Or even on a day where he's pretty good. The typical Peralta experience is a gnarly first inning when he throws 30 pitches. Then he cruises through the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And then in the 6th, he gives up a walk and a home run. And you're like, okay, well, that's kind of the experience. Yeah. You know, that's kind of Freddie in a nutshell.
That would be like if you paid to go to the Freddie Peralta experience, that would be where it's at.
Yeah, that's the expectation.
Yeah.
It's kind of a stinky first, and you're like, oh, this is going to suck. And then he redeems himself for 5 innings. And then right before you think, you can pitch a little bit longer, then he makes one mistake, and it kind of tarnishes the whole thing.
Right, yeah. Rick says, must have been out on the boat because the nose looks fried. No, that's where during one of the up and downs, trying to get back into port after the weather got bad on us, I banged my face on the windshield. So I was kind of leaning forward and the boat was going up and it popped me in the nose and it just took skin off. It's not fried like sunburn. It just took a little, like a layer of skin off and it bled a little bit, but no big deal. No big deal. Didn't break anything or anything. Like look, my nose has been broke 3 times. So if it gets broke again, who cares? It wouldn't matter. It's big, it's large, it's long, it's like a penis on my face. I don't know what else to do. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Let's do this. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, Bob Nightingale, the last time we heard from him, he was saying that Mark Antanasio said, let's just have some fun. Let's just be entertained. Let's just be entertained. Now, Bob's going, wait a minute. This team's pretty damn good. Good stuff. Let's do this. We'll discuss with Bob Nightingale when we come back. This portion of the program brought to you by our great friends over there at Marquardt RV. Marquardt RV gives us the ability to not only travel the state of Wisconsin, we're going out to Sturgis this year, but we have been raising money in different charity auctions with the RV to be able to take veterans and those that want to support veterans to certain trips. We got a great one coming up to open up the Packer season this year with the Detroit Lions. We're taking 10 people up to Lambeau Field, and we auction that off, and they're going to do a whole tailgate and everything with us. It's going to be a fantastic, but more importantly, it raised over $10,000. We can't do this without our friends at Marquardt RV. We just can't. Yes. So thank you, Marquardt RV. And if you're going to, yeah, there you go. If you're going to go into any place that has a heart and you're going to go to any place that actually has good service, it's Marquardt RV. And remember, they do a lot of great stuff when it comes to the charitable side of things. So thanks to them for helping us out this season. Always a great group of people to work with. And they have many different makes, many different models, new, used, you name it, whatever you're looking for, getting out and enjoying your summer, getting out and enjoying your family, getting out and maybe getting away from your family, whatever it is. That's Marquardt, MARKQUART, MarquardtRV.com. That is MarquardtRV.com. Again, MarquardtRV.com. More of the Bill Michaels Show. Bob Nightingale next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Bob Nightingale. Now, the last time we talked to Bob was the guy that was out at spring training talking about when Mark Antanasio said, let's just have some fun. And we'll talk with him this year.
Where did that come from?
Because
that was awesome.
That was a steaming pan load. So that let's just have some fun. That's what it was. We're just here to entertain you. We're not here to win World Series. If it happens, it happens. Let's just provide a great space at American Family Field for entertainment and fun. Family
Passion.
fun.
Passion.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff. Well, lo and behold, you go all the way back to, what is it, May 23rd, 28th, something like that, and the Brewers have the best record in baseball. Joining us now on the hotline, the man that wrote that article back at spring training, which set a lot of people off, and now writes another article saying, don't count them out because here they are again. Bob Nightingale from USA Today, baseball senior writer and Hall of Fame voter. Bob, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. No, thanks.
So, we look at it as they've got good pitching. All of a sudden, the hitting has started to warm up. Christian Yelich, as the temperature gets warmer, he heats up as well. Some of the guys we started to count out are now producing, like guys like Joey Ortiz. Sal Frelick's been a work dog all season long. There's Durbin, there's Collins. I mean, just names you throw out there, and you don't know who they are, but they're contributing. How do you see this Brewers team?
Yeah, I mean, every year they just exceed expectations. I mean, you think, okay, the Cubs are going to run away with this thing. Nobody else, the Reds did a little bit, and we really spending money. Cubs loaded up. And then here they are, just, two games back. It seems like every single year, we all want to count the Brewers, and every single year, they're in the playoffs. So, they're really like the Tampa Bay Rays of the of the National League. It's just that, they have a small payroll and stuff, not as small as Tampa's, but they just win.
So we were trying to talk about this last week. Pitching wise, I get it. They were ones that invested in the pitching lab. They were ones that invested in really concentrating on the mechanics of pitchers and getting them better and honing their skills. And I understand all of that. How do we account for young guys that just continue to come up and contribute? And we all, there's a sabermetric that drives people nuts. It's the catching or hitting is contagious. And can we just account to that? Or is there something, is there some elixir that the Brewers have that others may not yet?
Yeah, I think it is some kind of elixir. I mean, those guys, it's not like they're getting hurt and stuff. They're, staying reasonably healthy. I know Woodruff had his surgery coming back, but seems like they develop as well, if not better, than just about every other team. To your point, these young guys come up and they're ready. You don't see them bouncing back and forth between the major leagues and the minor leagues. And when they come up, they usually have success pretty early.
I go back to when the Cubs hired Theo Epstein, and he got all the scouts together and said, this is going to be our philosophy, from the scout that's scouting internationally at the lowest level to a scout that's one of our pro scouts, out for scouting a lot of upcoming games and series, that they were going to have one steady message. It seems like the Brewers have kind of done that when David Stearns took over, and maybe they've just kind of gone in that direction. But I agree with you. It's like, how do you take a guy like Priester? I mean, even Pat Murphy said, when we made the trade for this guy, I didn't really expect this. And all of a sudden they work with him a little bit, and boom, next thing you know, he's throwing 7 shutout innings and he's the talk of the town. They just continually dig these guys up, and they're able to find them. And again, they haven't won anything yet. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I did not see this coming, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what I mean?
No, I certainly didn't, and I don't think anybody did. One thing about the Brewers too is, like when you mentioned the Cubs with Theo, I mean, they deliberately tanked it for a few years, and just like Houston did, just like Baltimore did. You don't see them in Milwaukee. They're just consistently a good team, consistently in the playoffs, where you can match their resume pretty much against everybody, in the National League, but the Dodgers.
With the Brewers, for a long time, we were talking about the trade deadline, buyers or sellers. And obviously now you'd probably be a buyer, but I went from thinking they need a third baseman with pop. They need a shortstop that can actually hit. They need, and now it's kind of like, well, maybe they just need a veteran bat. And that was suggested last week by one of the broadcasters that joined us, that maybe they just need a veteran bat that can come up in a clutch situation, that maybe he's been there, done that. Is there that's out there that you can see? Because we're all going to start talking about the trade deadline heating up hot and heavy here in the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, there's not that, those stud bats out there. There's no Juan Soto out there, that type of thing, Rafael Devers. Arizona's got a couple nice bats, in the infield, whether it's Eugenio Suarez at third base or a Bo Naylor at first base. Those are two nice power bats, particularly Suarez. But I'm sure they'll get a lot of interest in Suarez. And I bet the price tag's high too.
Yeah. There is something to be said for a clubhouse chemistry, for lack of a better term. And one thing that I've noticed over the years, going back to when Craig Counsell was here, and now it's been extended when Murphy was here, was there was always a chemistry. There was no cliques. There was no like groups off in different corners. It's everybody kind of together, and everybody's kind of contributing, and everybody's laughing. Everybody's having. It's got like guys that genuinely enjoy coming to work every day, being with one another. And again, that's a metric you can't necessarily put an equation to, so to speak, but they've kind of created that here where guys look forward to coming to the ballpark every day. They look forward to seeing each other every day. And I guess that's just a big tribute to both Counsell and to Murphy,
Yeah, no, I mean, you in the front office, making sure you get the right guys that come in, they're going to fit into the program. They love playing for Murphy. It's almost like that college baseball attitude where, gives a, gets them fired up to play, and he, holds those guys accountable too. I mean, he hasn't been afraid to lash out at guys and say, "Hey, this is unacceptable," pulling guys from games. So I think certainly the veterans at clubhouse really respect that. Like, hey, you better play the way we expect, or you're going to call out for it.
Talk about the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, probably are the closest fly in the ointment for the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cubs. As much as I like Cincinnati, they just at times just seemingly can't put it together on a consistent basis, even though they've kind of hung in there this year with Terry Francona giving them a little bit better guidance. I don't know if they're going to be able to fully turn it around this season, but maybe next season. So talk to me about the Cardinals and where you think the Cardinals are at.
I mean, the Cardinals are kind of like that movie Major League where they're winning despite what the front office wants to do, and they want to rebuild. And the whole spending money in the winter, attendance is way down. They've been very vocal, like, okay, we're going to rebuild for the future here. Now I'm not sure how many guys they can trade off. I mean, they want to trade off their closer, Ryan Helsley and different guys and a few of their starters. I still believe they're going to last. I'm stunned how well they're playing, but at some point, I think attrition sets in. And you're right, Cincinnati, they're a dangerous team. But the funny thing is, you look at the NL Central compared to the NL West. It's possible now the NL West only has one playoff team with the Dodgers. You could have a few coming up from the Central.
Yeah, at first we thought the Central was going to be the worst division, and all of a sudden now, win record-wise, they've really come on. Cincinnati getting 2 out of 3 over the Yankees, which was a little bit surprising in that sense. But I agree with you about the Cardinals. They were in, hey, let's just see if we can hang on, and then we'll just start tearing this thing down mode. And now they're in it. So what do you say to the fan base if you say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and still tear it down because we don't believe we're good enough to win it all? And that's the thing where the Brewers – we look at the Brewers and say, well, are they going to be good enough to get to the postseason, maybe even win the division? But are they really going to do anything in the postseason? And we were just talking about this before break. You go through that starting rotation with Peralta, with what they got in Mizorowski. Priester's been throwing the ball since they picked him up from Boston. I mean, Quintana's been surprisingly good. Chad Patrick's their weakest link, and he just threw some scoreless innings over the weekend. They've got a pretty good rotation, and Woodruff is on the way back. You know what I mean? So their pitching staff, I don't look at any series at this point and go, yeah, they really don't have a chance in this particular game because of this particular pitcher.
No, you're right. That's what wins in the postseason is just that dominant pitching. A couple of years ago, nobody thought Texas Rangers were going to win the World Series with that team or the Arizona Diamondbacks. And they just, caught fire at the right time in October and stunned everybody. So, same thing. We've seen time and time again, just get into the playoffs. And if you have the pitching, you can do that sort of thing.
The best team in the National League right now, is that still the Dodgers?
Yeah, still the Dodgers. I mean, the fact they're winning with all the pitching injuries, yeah, and the way the Mets have dropped off. Philadelphia is very streaky, so yeah, it's got to be the Dodgers.
Then where would we put the Brewers in that mix? So if you look at the Dodgers, you look at Philadelphia, you look at the Cubs, you look at the Mets. Is the Brewers like that fifth team right now in that tier? Or do you look at the Brewers and go, you know what, 47 wins, they've been streaking, they've got 22 out of their last 30. Are they better than Philadelphia? Are they better than New York at this point?
Certainly, you got to say they're better than New York right now. I mean, New York just lost 13 of the last 16 games and just got smoked by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, I would definitely put them ahead of the Mets right now. Probably just barely below what the Cubs are doing and what the Phillies are doing. But right there, I mean, if they had closed out yesterday's game, they would just been one game back.
Talking about the Cubs for a real quick minute, because obviously they got off to a good start and they've kind of kept pace. They're for as good as the Brewers have been, the Cubs have been just a couple of games less than what the Brewers have been throughout this stretch, but they're still playing winning baseball. They've got some incredible players down there. Crow Armstrong has been absolutely fantastic this season. But is this part of finally Craig Counsell, after a full season, getting his arms around the organization?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, they're going for it. I mean, when they signed win trade for Kyle Tucker, they made a big thing. Suzuki really started playing much better. And they got, good and some great starting pitching, particularly with the, Shota Imanaga. They lost their ace in Justin Steele. They're still doing this. So I just think it's a case where they kind of underachieved last year. And I think for a while they kind of overachieved with that offense this year. And now they're playing about what I think people expected.
Bob, it's always great to talk to you. And as the season continues on, after the second half begins, we'll get you back on and talk a little bit more about hopefully the Brewers continuing to win and pressing the Cubs at the top of the division. Okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks, pal. There you go. Bob Nightingale from USA Today, baseball senior writer, also Hall of Fame voter, and part of the Baseball Writers Association, a long time, but a good friend of the program, joining us for a couple of minutes on the hotline. Bob Nightingale. Good stuff. And he just wrote an article, by the way. If you just search Bob Nightingale, he just wrote an article about the Brewers, and it's some fascinating stuff. It really is. When you start to look at what the Brewers are doing right now, and the title of the article, by the way, which is really cool, the title of the article says, "How do the Brewers keep doing this? Milwaukee keeps its secrets in the keg." I like that. Bob Nightingale from USA Today joining us on the hotline. Let's do this. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. We'll come back. We got a lot more to get to, but some positive stuff coming out. People are now waking up and going, I keep going back. I shouldn't do this, but I keep going back to the movie Major League, when the grounds crew, who did not speak English, and you'd always have to read the captions, say, maybe these guys aren't that blanking bad. When we thought at the beginning of the season, like, this isn't going to be that good. Now people are going, yeah, maybe they are pretty good. Maybe this isn't going to be a bad team after all. Hey, if you're looking to get out on the water, our friends over there at Skipper Bud's Boat Sales Service and Storage, call them 262-544-1200. Get a hold of Todd over there. He's the guy that can make the deal, because you've been sitting here in the summer, in the hot and the heat, thinking, man, I want to be on the water. Or maybe you've got a boat and you're like, this thing just isn't getting it done anymore. Now's the time to upgrade. You can just trade one in and pick up a new one today if you want to do that. They've got a lot of inventory. They've got a lot of new and used. And if you're looking to ski, if you're looking to upgrade, if you're looking for a bigger pontoon, whatever it happens to be, or maybe, God forbid, you need some service, get it in. 262-544-1200. Call our buddy Todd over there, 262-544-1200. That's Skipper Buds out there in Pewaukee. That's where I go. Skipper Buds in Pewaukee, 262-544-1200. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
And now for the Pella play-by-play, here's Jeff Levering.
Thanks, Gina Della from Pella. What a beautiful day to have new windows and doors installed.
Every day is beautiful because Pella installs year-round during all seasons.
And as Pella goes into another windup, it's so hard to guess that next pitch. The customizations seem endless.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive. Pella has a product line for every budget.
And if it is time for a major upgrade, rest easy by scoring no interest and no payments for up to 2 years.
Pella also provides a free in-home consultation, which includes a no-obligation quote.
That's always a great play because working with one of Pella's design experts is such a wonderful, no-pressure get-together. I know this from experience.
With a range of affordable options and products assembled in the USA, you can get the look you want at a price you can afford.
And there's no reason to wait with this incredible deal going on.
Get no interest and no payment for up to 2 years.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. 6/30/2025.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Good to have you back. Here's a note for you. The Axeman. The Axeman.
Rio Williams.
He's going to be inducted into the Brewers Wall of Honor. Brewers just making the announcement. He is going to be inducted, John Axford, into the Brewers Wall of Honor on Saturday, August 23rd. So he was here for 6 seasons, over 2 different stints with the Brewers. He ranks 3rd in franchise history in saves with 106. And he holds franchise single-season records in saves with 46 and consecutive saves with 43, both set during the impressive 2011 campaign, where he threw a 1.95 ERA, 86 Ks, and 74 relief appearances. The Axeman cometh. There you go. So Brewers Wall of Honor is going to get another name to it, and that is John Axeman Axford. Saturday night, August 23rd. So the Brewers honoring Jay. And he was a hell of a pitcher, man. John Axford was. Oof. Really, really solid. Really, really solid. What else do we have here for you? This is from Mark. Mark says, a terrific interview with Bob Nightingale. He really likes the Brewers. It's like he wants to really like the Brewers. You just can't bring yourself to believe that the Brewers are going to win a World Series. I think everybody is enthralled with what's going on with some of the youth and some of the guys that are finally starting to play up to their potential, but we're waiting for the other shoe to fall. We are trained as Wisconsinites to believe that. That is from Mark. Mark, appreciate the email. It's kind of true. I hate to admit it, but it's kind of true. It really is. We sit back and we wait, This is great. Win the division. You get into the postseason and you've got that, you got that dare to dream, You're like, start to look over that fence a little bit.
The article was really good and everyone should read it. And there's a lot of good quotes from Brewers and former Brewers.
Yep.
There was a little, maybe condescension isn't the right word. We were talking about this in my group chat yesterday, and one of my buddies goes, it kind of felt like someone wrote a story like, hey, look at how good this homeless guy is at the guitar. Like that's kind of the vibe you get. Like it's laid on a little heavy about how little money they have.
Right.
But it is on some level true,
that's
so it's a nice story.
They do have the ability to spend. And that's what's and again, I don't want to say spend just to spend, because that's not right. But you go back a few years, over the last few years, they've decreased that payroll by about 30 million. I mean, just in the numbers that we're privy to. So they do have the ability to spend. If they wanted to go out and get Suarez and then make a deal, they could do that. It's just whether or not they want to do that. So, or do you just want to get a rental? And they don't like doing that. They don't like picking up a player for just the next 3 months to lose prospects in the process. So, but I would, man. At what point do you just go for it? At what point do you say, you know what? Let's just, you don't want to deplete your farm system. But we talk about this every year. Like every year, it's kind of like, well, maybe they shouldn't. Well, maybe next year. Well, at what point do you just say, screw it? We're just going to push the chips to the table, like they did with CeCe, just to say, hey, let's just get to the postseason, see what happens. We got 1 hour down. Boom, that fast. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more of the Bill Michaels Show coming up. Don't go anywhere. Be right back at you.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, it was another series win for the Milwaukee Brewers, but they could not complete the sweep yesterday as they would lose in 11 to the Rockies 4-3. Former Brewer, now Rocky, Orlando Arcia would hit a tying home run with 2 outs in the ninth off of Trevor McGill, and then Kyle Farmer drove in the go-ahead run with a single in the 11th. The Crew would get their runs courtesy of home runs from Sal Frelick and Christian Yelich, and Joey Ortiz scoring on a wild pitch. Manager Pat Murphy says his team lacked offense.
So 3 hits through the ninth inning, I believe, and one was a bloop and one was an infield hit. We had 4 hits and 2 homers that were timely and great. And Chad Patrick did a nice job, and our relievers did a nice job, but they got big hits. The Farmer kid came off the bench and got at least 2 big hits, and more, we couldn't finish the job.
The Brewers now sit 47-37 on the year, 2 games back from the first place Chicago Cubs. They have today off, and then we'll start a 6-game road trip starting in New York tomorrow. Freddie Peralta will take the mound.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Bobby Portis has agreed to a 3-year, $44 million deal to remain with the Milwaukee Bucks. The 30-year-old averaged 13.9 points, 8.4 rebounds, and 2.1 assists in 49 games last season. And Wisconsin football got a running back for their 2026 class, 4-star recruit Amari Latimer out of Georgia. He committed just 2 days after the Badgers landed another 4-star recruit in wide receiver Jaden Pettit. For the Wisconsin Sports Zone Network, I'm Ebo.
Welcome back. Bill Michaels Show. On this Monday edition, welcome into everybody all throughout the great state of Wisconsin. Certainly appreciate all of our friends that we got a chance to see this weekend out in La Crosse at WKTY, which was awesome. I got a chance to see Ernie, our guy over there, WVRQ in Viroqua. We were at the Norwegian Hollow over the weekend, part of the ride that we had, the Big River Rally ride on Saturday, which was spectacular. We had so many fun stops, and it was a really the Legion. By the way, the Legion riders that led us, I was right behind them. They said, "Well, Bill Michaels is going to lead." I didn't lead. The Legion riders led, and man, it was fantastic. They did a great job. I thought the fact that they had a tie-in with, I think it was the Children's Miracle Network, and there was a couple of families there. And if I'm incorrect, I completely apologize. But they had a really neat pre-ceremony. They had a bike blessing, and then off we went. The Stockyard Grill and Saloon, which is down there in Coon Valley, they did a great job. We were there last year. That was our first stop last year, and they did a fantastic job. And the lady that owns that down there is just awesome. We ended up going to the Wildcat Mountain Bar and Grill in Ontario, Wisconsin. Little tiny place. And it was funny because the girl that was bartending, she says, "I'm the only bartender. I had to call my family in to help because there were so many people." And her mom was down there working. Her brother was there working. I think grandma was even there working. Everybody was there. And then the staff at S&S Cycle, the original facility down there in Viola, was just a great place to go through. This is my second chance going through that facility and seeing the birth of power engines, which was really, really cool. And then we went to the Norwegian Hollow down there on Norwegian Hollow Road, just like west of Viroqua, and got a chance to get down there and see Ernie and have, lunch. We had such a great time down there, and they had the road blown off for us because I know they had some pretty wicked storms that had rolled through there, and there was sand and some mud that had kind of covered the road. And by the time we went through, that was all but gone. And then back to the Big River Rally grounds where we had music, and they had a drowning pool on Saturday night. It was just and it grew. There was more vendors this year. Some familiar faces that we see at different rallies. I can't remember the lady's name off the top of my head. It escapes me, but she's going to be in Oconomowoc, I believe, for the Harley Davidson homecoming. She sells all the headbands and all that kind of stuff, mainly for women, but she sells a lot of the headbands. And we saw her. We saw some of the people from, they had a really cool custom bike show, a stunt show that was really interesting as well. Just a really good time. And it grows. This is the second year for that, and it's grown. And you can see the growth. You can see the anticipation, and they're going to continue to grow that. And that's going to be kind of an annual thing now. And I think the right weekend they chose to have it, which was really, really cool. But good group of riders, good group of just people. Said hi to a lot of people. I saw some people that listened to us out at Buzzard Billy's on Friday, and then saw them again over at Starlight Lounge on Saturday night, and got a chance to swing into Big Boar Barbecue. And I did get my sweet and spicy barbecue sauce jar on the way out of town, which was awesome. So a lot of good stuff. So a great weekend at the Big River Rally this past weekend, traveling all through that portion of Wisconsin, which was just awesome, just beautiful to ride in. I encourage you, even if you're going to trailer your bike out in that direction, man, if you go find a campground or a hotel or a motel somewhere, just go ride, because it's just, short of riding up north, that is just like God's country. It's just beautiful through there. Just really, really was. Up and down those hills. And you got some 7-degree descents into the valleys, where the valleys were cool breezes blowing through them on that hot day. So it was just a lot of fun. You want to join us as the Brewers got 2 out of 3 over the weekend? You can, 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. You can text us 608-321-1670, 608-321-1670. You can hit us up on YouTube. Go to YouTube.com. That is youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. YouTube.com/Bill Michaels Show. And that's free, by the way. We're not going to charge you for that. That's free. We'd love to have you. Become part of the family over there. Twitter, X, @Bill_Michaels, @Bill_Michaels. You can find Grant @Wisco, WISCO, @Wisco Grant. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. We're back on TikTok, by the way. We're back on TikTok. Who knew? But I got the notification this morning when I flipped the computer on. They said, welcome back to the family. So we should be live on TikTok today. I'm not sure, but I think we are. You can find us under The Bill Michaels Show, THE, The Bill Michaels Show. We're on Twitch. We're on Kick. We're on the LinkedIn apps as well. You can email the program, thebillmichaels@gmail.com. The website, simply thebillmichaels.com. The app, WOZN, The Zone Madison, and then on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcast after the fact. And thanks for watching the show as we now effort into football season. Heading in, we're only like 3 weeks away from camp. Can you believe it? 3 weeks away from camp. And we're going to be fully fledged in that once we get into that portion of our television shows on My 24 TV in Milwaukee, My 24 TV Milwaukee. So there you go. Good stuff. So all over that region out there this past weekend. Meanwhile, the Brewers, they got 2 out of 3 over the weekend. They had 3 out of 3. They had it right there. They were 90 feet away from winning that, and they let it slip through their fingers. The bullpen, not great. They had a little bit of an off day yesterday, but for the most part, just to get 2 out of 3 and continue to win series. Now you're off to New York, where New York is, you heard Bob Nightingale in the first hour, who writes for USA Today, the baseball senior writer, said, look, they're struggling. The Mets are struggling right now. Even their owner admits they're struggling right now. So now the Brewers go into New York, where that's the home of David Stearns, who put that team together. And maybe the Brewers get 2 out of 3, and which would be fantastic. And get 2 out of 3 and kind of put it to the Mets, continue to win. And who knows, the Brewers right now sitting only 2 games behind the Cubs in the standings. And you've got tomorrow night will be the opener in New York. Freddie Peralta goes to the Hill. So and we were talking about this earlier. I don't think there's anybody on the staff right now that I don't believe in. I think every day when you look at the starting rotation, you're like, I think there's only probably a couple of question marks in your head. One we talked about earlier, where it's just kind of which Freddie is going to show up. You're always going to get a good Freddie. It's whether or not it's Freddie that throws 90 pitches in 4 innings, or it's Freddie that's very efficient and gets through 6, gives you that quality start, walks away with maybe a 1 or 2 to 1, 1-0 lead, and turns it over to the bullpen, and you ultimately get yourself a win. And then after that, you got Mizorowski, which is going to be exciting within itself, because he is sitting right now at 3-0 after his last win was against Paul Skeens and the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Mizorowski against Tidwell coming up on Wednesday, and then Quintana and Peterson go at it on Thursday. And there's not a game that I look at and go, no, they're not going to win that game. And by the way, the cool thing is they're all evening games coming up this week. All evening games. The only day games the Brewers have is on Saturday, July 5th and Sunday, July 6th. That's it. Everything else, evening game. So sitting back at the tiki bar, man, little grilling out, beverage. I can't wait. It's going to be that kind of week. And at what point, I said this going into the break, at what point do you look at the Brewers as a fan base and say, this is the year you want to go for it? And I posed that question at the top of the hour and just said, at what point do you look at it and go, yeah, they really should probably go for it? And is this Snooky? No, Snooker. Snooker. I'm sorry, Snooker. 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 Snooker says, and I don't know how you get the name Snooker, but okay. Snooker says you just can't go for it yet, because when you match up these teams pound for pound, the Dodgers are the team to beat. Why would you then spend draft capital and or prospects for somebody that's only going to be a rental? Well, first of all, you're not going to spend prospects in the plural. If you're going to get somebody that's going to be a rental for a couple of months, you're not giving up a ton. Maybe a prospect to put you over the top. But if you have like plans of then signing them, maybe that becomes a little bit different. But I don't think the Brewers are going to do that. Not for Suarez. Suarez is the guy that if I'm going to target anybody, Suarez would be the guy. He would be the third baseman coming out of Arizona. He's going to give you 20-plus home runs. He's going to give you a good average. He's going to be another really solid bat in the lineup, especially playing in this division. So I would like to see Suarez. But, again, you're talking about now, one, what is your clubhouse going to be like? Does Suarez fit your clubhouse? Two, you're going to move off of Caleb Durbin if you do that, because Suarez is going to come in with a better batting average, better power numbers, playing third base already. Caleb Durbin becomes your off-the-bench guy, you would assume. So, and Caleb Durbin is a righty, where Jake Bauers, is basically your left-handed bat off the bench. Otherwise, you don't have anybody. Would Montecero then be the guy that you would move in that particular case? Would he then be the guy that goes down? Would Daz Cameron, the additional outfielder, be the guy that goes down? So I'm just kind of waiting to see and sometimes these things just work themselves out, but I'm waiting to see what they're going to do. But Suarez would be the guy that I would target. But I kind of get the sense that if they're going to make a move, it's going to be a lesser move than that. That's just my thought, but it would probably be a lesser move than that. But I'd still like to see the Brewers do something, because I asked the question, at what point do you just say, we're going to go for it? We're buyers, we're not sellers. And we're not just going to stand pat and say, let the chips fall where they may. At what point do you say, yeah, I think there's something special going on in the clubhouse?
I'd feel so much better about this idea if Contreras didn't have a broken hand.
Right.
I think that's what's kind of limiting my hopes and dreams for this season, because he's one of their top 3 bats and a fringe MVP candidate when he's right.
Right.
And he's not going to be right this year because the hand needs surgery. So that injury, I think, just puts a damper on everything, because I think the pitching's tremendous and Yelich is playing well. And I think Churio, I think we'll still see probably his best ball at some point this year. The Contreras thing really bums me out.
Well, and I agree with you. And here's off the text line, says, do you really believe that the Brewers are going to make a move? Okay, my question is, at what point would you say make a move? That's my whole argument. At what point do you look at this and go, they got to do something? Anything. My argument always is, they kept talking about remember when David Stearns was here, how many bites at the apple? We just got to keep getting bites at the apple. Okay. Great. But do you just want to bite at the apple? Or do you actually want to take a bite and go, you know what? We've got a little more teeth this time. Maybe we can get through this thing a little bit quicker. Maybe we can I want to see them. I want to see them not only get to the postseason, I want to see them win a series in the postseason. I want to see them advance. I want to see them grow. Okay, do we think they're going to win the World Series? Not right now. But anything can happen, especially when you have good pitching. Bob Nightingale said that. He said that's the number one thing that you want going into the postseason. So if that's the number one thing you want, and say you do go down to the 4-man rotation, think about the rotation you could have right now with what they have in their stable. You got Freddie Peralta, Mizorowski, Priester's throwing extremely well. What about when Woodruff comes back? And then you still have Quintana, who's having a better season, I think, than a lot of people were going to give him credit for. Why not? Why not make a move just to get yourself that much better? And what's standing in the way? Now, again, it takes 2 to tango. You always have to have somebody to be a trade partner. You always have to have somebody that's going to give you something for what it is you're willing to give up. So I understand all of that. And there's going to be numerous teams that are going to be in the mix for a guy like Suarez. So I understand it. You don't want to get into the bidding war and then end up giving up more than you think it's really worth. Understandable. But damn it, what is going to make Brewers fans believers? That's what I want. And you're not going to burn up Mizorowski. I get it. I just had this is from Lonzo. Lonzo says, do you really want to pitch Mizorowski all those extra innings in the postseason? This is the reason you watch his arm now. This is the reason you can limit his pitches now.
I was going to say that's the one place I'd love to burn up his arm.
But but
yes,
exactly. I'm kind of like, well, again, we're putting all these restrictions on a team that's trying to go to the postseason because we're trying to be cautious. At what point do you throw caution to the wind? That's I don't. This would be like the Packers. How many Packers fans get pissed because they don't make a move? It's going to be a playoff team. So let's make a move. And they get pissed. They get angry that they didn't take that extra step because it's Super Bowl or bust. Okay? Because they've won a championship. You've had that taste. The Brewers have never won a championship. At what point do you say, let's do this? Doug Melvin had the cojones to do it when they made the trade for CeCe because they knew they needed to get to the postseason. They knew they needed to get there to get that experience as a franchise. Okay, now they've had a lot of that experience. And here's the other thing. And Tug, I get it. Tug says, well, you got to wait till you have bona fide superstars on your team. Okay, you're never going to have that. So stop that thinking. You are not the Dodgers. You're not the Yankees. You're not the Phillies. You're not the Mets. You're not going to have 5 or 6 or 7 all-stars on your team under contract as rookies. You don't have that money. So at what point do you say, we got to go try to compete with those teams? Because every year we're going to look at it and go, well, they're 1 or 2 players short. Put them up against the Dodgers, put them up against the Yankees, put them up against the Phillies, put them up against the Mets, put them up against the Red Sox or whatever team happens to be the flavor of the month when it comes to these teams that spend money. You're never going to have that. So at what point do you say, let's go for it? Let's see if we can put one over on the big league teams because we look at ourselves as almost a minor league team at this point. But I agree with you. You're when you look at the Dodgers and you look at that roster and you're thinking to yourself, man, they got Ohtani and they got Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman and man, they got Max Muncy, and you go through this whole thing. Yeah, the Brewers are never going to have that kind of a payroll. Not in our lifetime. They're never going to have it. Not unless Mark Attanasio hits 5 or 6 lotteries, So what's the deciding factor for you to go, yeah, let's go ahead and try this? Instead of every year thinking you're just not there. What would make you be a decider in that? 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Quick Trip. Love Quick Trip, running all around the state. We had a Quick Trip right next to the hotel out on La Crosse, and they were basically my food supplier. So got a couple burgers, stopped in because it was hot, got 2 or 3 Gatorades, got 1 5-hour energy because I was just dragging ass. So all of that, just thanks to Quick Trip. Filled up the bike, filled up the car, everything. It was just, it's always a lifesaver when you see the great big Quick Trip sign. Doesn't it matter if it's that giant truck there on Mauston, which is it's got a Denny's in it, and it's that huge truck stop, or you just got one of the small ones, where you just hit maybe a stop and go. We hit one when we were coming up along the Mississippi River. There's just a little tiny Quick Trip, and I just thinking to myself, man, I should have went to the bathroom before I left the Norwegian Hollow. And then all of a sudden you see that sign, Quick Trip. It's like, stopped in, got a Gatorade, went to the bathroom, clean, small. See you next time. I love it. Love it. Doesn't matter. Big or small, Quick Trip. Just when you see the sign, it makes you smile. It makes you feel like you're at home. That's our friends over there at Quick Trip. We'll take your calls and thoughts when we come back. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The engines are coming to life. It's race season again. Vintage, Superbikes, IndyCar, and more. For tickets and information, go to roadamerica.com. That's roadamerica.com.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
So we're on the ride on Saturday, and a guy comes over to me and says, I gotta hear the sound system on the bike, because I talk about it all the time. And 2 things I discovered over the weekend. One, there is nothing like having the example sitting in front of you. And I talk about Tim Stereo Systems all the time. And I waited for almost 2 years looking for somebody to work on my motorcycle. And Tim did it and put in the sounds system, SOUNDZ. And I went over and I, turned on some rock music and cranked it up. And they're like, wow, it is really clear. You don't have thumping bass because you can't hear bass when you're doing 50 miles an hour. So, but it was as clear as a bell. It didn't matter how loud I turned it up, which I think I woke up the entire neighborhood, but it just cranked. So first of all, it was a thumbs up from Tim Stereo Systems just on that witness alone and for the job that Tim has done. But then I told you about the headlight that I had put in. So this was the first time that I had a chance to ride the motorcycle at night. Oh my God. It's like driving with the sun. It's fantastic. And if you're looking for anything in that realm, whether it's a wider headlight, a brighter headlight, sees further down the road. So that way, if you're driving on some of those back roads at night and the critters are crossing the street, you can see them and they can see you coming. It is like driving with the sun. It is fantastic. That's Tim Stereo Systems, motorcycle audio. My God, get a hold of them. And the brake assist is life-changing. That's a whole other story for a whole other day. But between the motorcycle audio, the sound system that he put in, and that headlight, oh my goodness. 608-718-1425. Call Tim and go, Tim, I just heard Bill Michaels talking about the sound system, and I heard him talking about the headlight. I got to get a witness of this. 608 608-718-1425. 608-718-1425. That is Tim's Stereo Systems, motorcycle audio, and that's all he does is motorcycle work. Between the wiring, which is perfect, and it's not going to catch your bike on fire like we've seen others do, and he does everything meticulously. That's Tim's Stereo Systems again, 608-718-1425. I love it when people come in over and they go, let's check this out, as if they're skeptical, and then I turn it up and then they walk away going, damn, he wasn't lying. So loved it. Bob says, I talked to you in lacrosse a few weeks ago. Still concerned that Major League Baseball has some major league teams supported by development teams like Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, and such. We have many AAA league teams to feed the most favored large city teams. That's fine. And I don't disagree with that, because the Brewers are going to be a team where you're going to see Mizorowski, and they're going to probably try to lock him up at some point to a long-term deal to keep him for at least 6, 7, 8 years. But then when he reaches his prime around 30, 31, 32, and then he's going to be off somewhere else. I don't disagree with that. It's when the Brewers keep winning, and that's the problem. If the Brewers and Cincinnati were tanking, and I'm talking about really trying yet tanking. So think about that for a moment. If you had small market teams such as Pittsburgh, and okay, let's just go through it, because we're going to go through what we consider to be small market. Okay. You look at a team like Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is considered small market. They're 47-37, 10 games over 500. They're a game and a half behind the Yankees. Small market, and they're winning. They're doing it in a particular way. Go ahead, Grant.
Well, on Bob's comment real quickly, like, I understand it's tough when a player plays in Milwaukee for 6 or 7 years and then they go sign elsewhere for massive money. We've talked about this with the Packers, but for whatever reason, we don't talk about the Brewers. Most of the time, those contracts don't go that well. You know what I mean? Like, Corbin Burns is going to have Tommy John.
Yep.
He's going to be out, and he wasn't that great this year. He was already declining. So Brewers fans, I understand it. It sucks. Like, we want our favorite players to be here forever, and we want them to be good forever. A lot of times the Brewers bring them up and they get the best baseball out of them while they're cost controlled. And then they go somewhere else and they make massive money from teams that can pay it. And then they're not as good. And the one guy that the Brewers have paid is, we're all pulling our hair out at times over the Christian Yelich deals. So I understand the frustration.
So
yeah, and that was a cheaper deal.
Yeah, exactly. That was the thing, that was a cheaper deal. So the free agent thing with Christian Yelich, I mean, they actually got him as opposed to others. They got him at a bargain.
Well, especially consider when they paid him. Yeah. They paid him after 2019 when he easily could have won a second straight MVP. It's not like they paid him after 2 down years and he settled. Like they basically paid for him at the top of the market and they still got a discount. So I just, again, to Bob's comment, I understand it's frustrating because it feels like the small market teams are feeding the big ones, but that's a tax that the big market teams are paying. So they're paying, 2 or 3x what those players are worth. And typically those deals don't work out. When you look at ranking the markets, the renovations to Kauffman Stadium the last few years, they've opened some revenue streams, but Kansas City is one of the smaller ones. Oakland, Tampa Bay, Milwaukee. See, they talk about like San Diego being a small market team. In the totality of people, but they get that's not a small market. San Diego is not a small market. Cincinnati is considered a small market. That's not a big metropolis. They don't have a big media market. They got a really nice ballpark. Baltimore is a big city, but they consider them small market. So some of the Brewers would kill for Baltimore's market size. The Brewers would kill for Seattle's market size. The Pirates are small market. I would agree with that. But Cleveland, they consider Cleveland a small market team. Cleveland is a big city. I think it's top 10, top 15 media market in the country. It's a big city, man. Colorado, smaller market. That I get. St. Louis is right on the verge
of being the small market. They consider Minnesota a small market. Minnesota's a big city. Minnesota, St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul. It's huge. That's a big area, man. Arizona, they're in the heart of Phoenix. How can that be considered a small market? Miami's a small market in the sense that nobody gives a damn. It's a big market, big media market, but nobody cares. Nobody cares down there. Houston's a big city. Then you got San Francisco, and it kind of goes from there. Toronto's a big city. Detroit's a big city. Atlanta's a big city. The White Sox are in a huge 8 million people. Top 3 media markets in all of the country. It's a huge market. But the problem is a lot of those supporters are Northsiders, not Southsiders, but still a huge market. The Nationals, they go, wow, the Nationals are a small market. The hell they are. That's a big market, DC is. The problem is, again, it's so transient from people that have moved there from other areas. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So my point being is the Brewers are really the Brewers, the Reds, the Pirates, the Royals. Those are your small market teams. I don't consider Baltimore a small market, even though when you compare them in their division to the other teams, yeah, they're a smaller market. But I think Tampa Bay is even smaller than Baltimore. But the problem is, my point being in all of this, is that the Brewers, the Tampa Bay Rays, the St. Louis Cardinals, they've been able to win. They've figured out winning, and they're considered small market teams. So I agree with the sentiment of, well, we're just a feeder team. We're a feeder team after those contracts come to fruition and you need to make tough monetary decisions. What we consider to be small market, and what I consider to be small market, is when you have a name like a Soto, like a Judge, like a Harper, like a Ohtani, like those names come up towards free agency, and you don't have the ability to even consider throwing your hat in the ring for that talent. That's when the, quote, small market begins to bother me. That's when it becomes inherently unfair. That's what small market means to me. I don't know what it means to you, but that's what small market means to me, is when you look at these teams and you go, or these names, and you're like, don't even consider it. Don't even begin to hope, because you can't. You don't have that ability. That's when it's inherently unfair. 877-867-1670.
Well, and market size isn't everything, too. San Diego's relatively is a smaller market, but their ownership group has burned through cash to the point where they've had to, like, all right, now we got to make deals to get money back. Right. So they've gone all in and had to pull back out, and that's been a whole thing. But Chicago, to your point, the White Sox is a massive market. Jerry Reinsdorf is just a cheap bastard. Like, he doesn't want to spend money. Right. So it's not always market size. It's about the person who's cutting the checks, and it's about how's the television deal factoring in it. It's a lot more than just simple market size. But needless to say, the Brewers do not have a exorbitantly wealthy owner or a large market, which is why they're, thought of and talked about in the way that they are.
It is small market means your ability for rights outside in your area, your ability to generate revenue. Obviously there's population size that goes along with it. But like the Brewers are kind of locked. They have basically the state of Wisconsin, because to the east is Lake Michigan, to the south is Chicago, and then to the west is the Twins, Minneapolis, and maybe a little bit of Iowa, but you don't have a region to draw from of money, of media money. They're very locked in what they can get. The Cubs have 8 million people just in Chicago, just in the city of Chicago, not to mention the entire state, which is even larger. And then
definitely a fan base that goes all over the country.
And then they go south into Indiana, and they can draw money from all of those different areas. Okay. Cincinnati's got basically Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, from Columbus south, we'll say, to down to damn near Lexington, because they're on 700 WOW, and that's a huge, huge stick down there. So that's a much larger media market than even Milwaukee is. St. Louis has the whole St. Louis region. I mean, that's a pretty large, good market to be in. Cleveland has 6 million people in it. So I can't consider Cleveland a small market team, even though to the north you have, Lake Erie. So I can't consider them to be a small market team. Pittsburgh, they got a small region because they are in the Cincinnati area. They're in, because that's their little region right there. They've got basically them and Wheeling, West Virginia, which is not very populated and not monetarily, swift. So you don't have a lot over there. Kansas City is, again, they're somewhat locked because St. Louis is probably more popular down there than the Kansas City Royals are. So there's only so much. But yeah, Dwayne says, well, Twin Cities, they have over 4 million people. Exactly. Just in that city, in that area. And then they can go west because there's nothing west, right? Until you get to Colorado. So to me, it's the ability to draw money in a particular market that makes you a large or small market. And the Brewers, they don't have a large market. But Grant, to your point, you go back to this and you talk, and we'll get to the phone call coming up here after the break. But when you talk about whether or not they should go all in and the money that they have to spend, and some of these contracts, they just look at and go, either one, we don't want to retain this guy because we don't believe his talents are going to remain the same over the next level of time. Or two, I think it's unfair when the big names come up and the Brewers don't even have a shot to dive into that pool. That to me is when it's frustrating as a Brewers fan to say we're, quote, small market. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin. Go to PellaWI.com. That is PellaWI.com. And whether it's for beautification, whether it's for the economical factor, keeping the heat out and the cool air conditioning in like I'm doing today, or maybe just the safety factor when you lay your head on your pillow at night, Pella's got it all going on. And the best part about it is you can get it for 0% financing right now. Right now, just check it out. It doesn't cost you anything to look, right? Go to PellaWI.com. That's PellaWI.com, or call them 855-PELLA-WI, 855-PELLA, 855-PELLA-WI. Again, 855-PELLA-WI. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Sometimes I get a good feeling. Yeah.
Welcome back. Yeah. Talking some Brewers baseball. A lot of celebratory cigars lit up over the weekend. Brewers winning 2 out of 3. They had that third one. We've got a great letter from Terry. Or an email, I should say. Terry said, hey, Bill was in town to watch the Brewers this weekend. Had a chance to go down to the Nice Ash Cigar Bar in Waukesha. Boy, you weren't kidding. Friday Night Live is up and running. A really cool event. I wish they did something like that here. I don't know where he lives, but he said here. He said, I had a chance to go in, sit down and relax with my buddies. We had a fun weekend. Didn't get a chance to get to Stenny's, but we did get to the Nice Ash. Great staff, and the music was really good on Friday night. So great stuff down there. Friday night, always Friday Night Live going strong. So they had a good time. So thank you so much, Terry, for shooting me the note. Whenever somebody gets a chance to spend any time at any of the places that we recommend, I always want to hear about it. Always want to hear about it. And 99.9% of the time, it's always outstanding. And if there is an issue, usually we send it right off to those who do advertise with us to let them know that there was a problem, and they try to take care of it or rectify it right away, because we deal with a lot of great people that really take customer service seriously. So, Terry, glad to know that you had a good time down at the Nice Ash. Nice Ash Cigar Bar, 323 West Main Street, downtown Waukesha. Whether you're going in just to kind of go in for the vibe and take a load off and just watch a game, or you're going down there for the fine bourbons and the whiskeys and the humidor and the hookahs and live entertainment down there, music on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, good stuff at the Nice Ash Cigar Bar, 323 West Main Street, downtown Waukesha. Good stuff. Chuck says, I'm a Twins fan, and I would love to have the Brewers' problems. The Folad family is such a cheap-ass group, and the manager sucks, but the owner don't. But the Brewers are always contenders. Your cries and complaints are falling on deaf ears as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I get it. But again, you're talking about, like I said, my issue is not the way the Brewers do things. My issue is the ability to do more. My issue is going back to when you got a guy like Juan Soto, going back to a guy like Bryce Harper, and those particular players where you really don't have, you can't even get into that mix. Jeff Passan last year or 2 years ago when Ohtani was coming up for his deal, and he said, "Oh, there's going to be all 32 or 30 teams are going to be pulling out the checkbooks." And I said, "No, they're not. No, there's maybe 3, maybe. That's it. Maybe 3 teams are going to pull out the checkbooks. The rest of them go, we can't even compete. Don't even call. Don't even call. We don't have the ability to do that." And teams like the Brewers, who have to think about rental players for the postseason, have to be really, really careful on what they spend to get them. Because those players, now again, they got CeCe for like a guy like Matt Laporta. And Matt Laporta didn't, and everybody thought so highly of Matt Laporta in the minor league system, but he really never panned out to be anything. So sometimes you put too much value on a prospect. But when you don't have the ability to go ahead and do it, we got to make that run. And you have to constantly think about what your future might hold as opposed to the ability to go for it today. That to me is the difference between being the Yankees, being the Dodgers, being the Red Sox, being the Angels, being some of these big market teams like the Mets, like the Phillies, go on through that list, and being the Brewers, where they can say, we can waste one. It won't kill us because if that guy doesn't pan out, we'll just go buy another guy. Whereas the Brewers go, if that guy doesn't pan out and we don't win what we think we need to win, my God, we're set back 2 more years. Because we don't have the ability to go. You're right. We don't have the ability to go out and find that guy and buy that guy. So that to me is where the inherent unfairness in Major League Baseball comes into play.
It's the ability of some teams to sign bad contracts and get away with it. Yes. That's what it comes down to. Yes. Because I always think this. I first started thinking about this when Trey Turner got signed with the Phillies. It was like 13 years. It's like, that's not a good, like, even if he's good, that's not a good contract. But what you learn and what I've learned over the years is, so the big market teams, it's not about signing good deals. It's about, well, we can afford to sign a bad one, so who cares? Right. And that's, I think, what really separates the teams that you're discussing from the teams like the Brewers.
This is out of the 608. I don't think they're ever going to go all in, off the text line, by the way, because they need to keep their young players and prospects around to replace above average veterans coming up for bigger contracts. Bottom line is they're cheap. That's not being cheap. That's being smart business. You can't pay everybody. Like I said, there's about 20 to 30 million that's probably floatable right there. That can buy you some players. But again, you don't spend it just to spend it. You have to figure out a way to utilize that money and get the most out of that money. Again, it goes back to what you just said, where if you sign a bad contract, as the Yankees, as the Dodgers, as the Phillies, whatever, you can just say, okay, no big deal. The Brewers can't afford to do that. They can't afford it. If they go in all in, the Brewers can sign a deal. Now, I will back up. If there was a player that was willing to sign for 2 years for $25 million a year, and you could gamble on that for 2 years and you wouldn't be into the long, they could do that.
Like Hoskins. Yeah.
Yes, they could do that. And you can get away with it. But you can't sign that 8 to 10 year deal. To me, I think a lot of things would be cured in Major League Baseball if you got rid of the 5+ year deal. If you just went strictly top it out at 5 years. That's it. That's the longest deal you can sign. Then maybe the Brewers can get into the mix. Because then you can bite off some of those contracts and say, okay, if the guy's really good for 2 years, you hate to pay that kind of money for 3 more years, but you can at least, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can't do an Ohtani deal.
That's kind of what they did with the Lorenzo Cain deal in 2017. They said, it's 5 years. Hopefully the first 3 will be great and we'll suck it up on the back end. Right. So again, there's precedent for all the things that you're describing, even within the last half decade for the Brewers. Totally.
Two words, Jeff Suppan, when they paid him. And he was terrible his last few years.
I thought Sue pitched great, personally.
Yeah, right. So same thing. That's the type of contract that we're talking about, where those things just sink a small market team, and you can't do that. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Cody from Cochran said, I think this team is one key player away from getting over the hump. You don't have the 27 Yankees to be able to go on a roll to win a title, but will say, I think they're desperately needing one more veteran batter. That's my opinion. I think this team is a snake waiting to strike. Thanks from Cody. Cody listening to us in Cochran. John in Eau Claire says, I think the Brewers need to pull the trigger and go for it because every year we're sitting here talking about the same thing. Oh, we should have pulled the trigger and made the trade. We should have pulled the trigger and made that trade. It never happens. If they want to go for it, it's time to do it. Let's go for it this year. There you go. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. 877-867-1670. Let's go to Jeff. Jeff, welcome to the program, man. What's happening?
Hey, good morning, Bill. How you doing, sir?
We're doing good today. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking here. One, before I go on, are you going to be in Greendale Village at all this weekend for the parades? I mean, not the parade, but the concerts and stuff in the village?
We might be,
actually.
Because we're going to be out and about. Yeah, we're going to be out and about this weekend, so we might actually be, yeah. Because I think we're either going to take the boat out or we're going to go ride, one of the two. So, yeah, that might be one of the things we do.
All right, awesome. If I see you, I'll definitely buy a drink, whether it's a water, a soda, beer, whatever it is, your beverage of choice.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'll be there for Bella King for sure.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Yeah, and Kristen loves Bella King. So there you go.
Thursday they're there. So just throw it out there.
Gotcha.
But at any rate, to go back to the Brewers, I've lived here my whole life. I'm 56. The only time I didn't live here was 4 years in Norfolk, Virginia when I was stationed there. But outside of that, I've always lived in Milwaukee area, West Dallas, now, New Berlin, blah, blah, blah. This team is, what they're doing is they're doing the best they can each year. Now, have there been years where you really scratch your head and go, what in the world is going on?
Right.
Absolutely, there's been years like that. There's no doubt. But overall, I think they do a good job. And I agree with you. It stinks when it comes to those to get a good player. They're just not set up to go out and get those. I agree with you on that too. And but what I would like to see, just for me as a fan, a longtime fan here, and seeing the World Series, I was 13 years old. It was an amazing time. I would love to see the Milwaukee area experience that again. Hopefully, it win this time. But I'd love to see the area experience that again. And that would be to go get a 2 or 3 starter pitcher, 2 or 3, I think would be great because one, you're probably not going to have to give up a whole lot and pay a whole lot. Then I think just getting a veteran arm would be huge because now whoever we got in the back part, like Patrick, who's been doing okay, but he gives up a lot of fly balls. He's not a ground ball hitter. I think that's just that you're flirting with danger come playoff time to this guy launching balls over the wall, come playoff time. So if he comes out of the bullpen or a long arm relief guy, that's awesome. That's just helping your bullpen.
Right.
So I'd like to see our 2 or 3 kind of veteran come in if they can do something like that. And also the veteran bat to come off the bench. Right now I say don't touch it. Me and you probably grew up in the same thing. As you saw a lineup when it hit, you just knew the next day. Right. This is the lineup. For me, it was, Mauder, Young, Cooper, Gantner. You just knew. I love seeing that. So I'm just old school that way. So I like to know who's going to play. But if you get a veteran and one of these guys like third baseman, I'm drawing blank on his name. The third baseman and shortstop. Yeah, thank you. Let's say they start hitting a funk. Now you throw in your veteran.
Right.
That utility guy that can come in and fill for them. And maybe they get their groove back, whatever. But I'd like to see, those would be my 2 moves. Go get those. I think they're doable. But I am frustrated with, like you said, hey, I'd like to go get this guy. It'd be great, but we can't do it because we just don't have an idea. And if you could, guys, just to throw out to the younger audience for you guys, can you just pull up, like, what years? I can tell you a few names off the top of my head. Like Sutton was on the back end of his career. Simmons was still productive, but on the back end. Vukovic, still productive, but on the back end. So we had guys on the back end in that 82, along with your stars of Mauder, obviously, and Gantner. Good guys, all-star Hall of Famers for 2. But that team got to the World Series with guys in the back end. So I think the Brewers can do that too, with this team. So that's just my opinion. Yeah. You have a great day, and hopefully I run into you guys.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. He drops off. You get on board, 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670 if you want to hit us up. Some good points there. Let's do this. We'll discuss when we come back. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more of the Bill Michael Show and some news that I just saw, and I did not realize this for sure because every now and then you see things on the internet and you're not quite sure. But I just kind of went back and looked, and I did see this. So I got some other news coming up here momentarily. Stay tuned. We got a whole lot more of the Bill Michael Show. It's brought to you by our friends at DJ's Goalpost, Appleton Avenue in Menomonee Falls. I saw a lot of people over there this weekend that were over there this weekend by some of the posts. So they had a good crowd over there watching Brewers baseball because it was a little bit hot on Saturday, and had a good crowd in there doing a little grub, watching the game. So good stuff over DJ's Goalpost for anything, whether it's just stopping in for a beverage, stopping in for a meal, or stopping in to catch a game. That is DJ's Goalpost, Appleton Avenue, Menominee Falls, like watching sports in a museum with all the memorabilia that Don has collected over the years.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket, this is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Down, 2 hours yet to go. We're at the halfway point. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers are getting the day off after failing to close out the Rockies yesterday in what turned into a 4-3 extra innings loss. It wasn't for a lack of production from Sal Frelick. He had 3 of the team's 6 hits, now batting .350 since being moved into the leadoff spot in the middle of June. Manager Pat Murphy was asked afterwards whether Frelick has done enough to claim that spot for the rest of the year.
This is baseball, like things happen, but I mean, he's doing a good job. And the 3 hits, one's a bloop, one's a smash, and the other one's an infield hit, but he's capable of all that. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's got a good on-base percentage. He's very, very capable, and he's very clutch.
Milwaukee headed out for its final road trip before the All-Star break. They will play 3 games in New York against the Mets and then head to Florida to face the Marlins for another 3 games. They close out the first half of the season with series against the Dodgers and Nationals at home. Turning to the Bucks, they're bringing Bobby Portis back, a 3-year, $44 million deal. He missed a large stretch of games due to a suspension last year, but finished the year averaging 13.9 points and 8.4 rebounds per game. Meanwhile, Kevin Porter Jr. let his player option expire and will become a free agent.
For nearly 40 years, ABC Wisconsin Apprenticeship has been helping men and women transform themselves into highly skilled trade professionals. These skills are in demand and provide strong wages and benefits for a bright future. If you're a hands-on person who likes the feeling when you get projects done, apprenticeship could be for you. Go to buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Well, the Badgers had a couple of big recent recruiting wins, getting a commitment from 4-star wide receiver Jaden Pettit last Thursday and 4-star running back Amari Latimer on Saturday. The two become the highest-rated players in Wisconsin's 2026 recruiting class. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
Welcome in. Not fast. Past the halfway point. Out of halftime. Hour number 3. Monday edition. Sunny edition of the Bill Michaels Show. Brewers taking 2 out of 3 off today. Back at it again tomorrow. They are in New York taking on the Mets. And the Mets struggling right now. Hopefully the Brewers are catching them at a good time. They get a couple of wins. And over this next 12-game stretch before the All-Star break, you'd like to see them. I said 8 out of 12 would be really, really good because you got the Mets and you got the Dodgers in there. So 8 out of the next 12 would be really good, really good. 7-5, could live with it. 6-6, they're better than that. At least they are right now. But 8 out of the next 12 would be really nice if they could go in that direction. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. You want to find us, please feel free. Go ahead and do so. You can text us 608-321-1670. You can also watch the program, subscribe to the program for free. Go to YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. You can also find us on Twitter, on X, @Bill_Michaels. You can find Grant at Wisco Grant, Instagram, Facebook. We're back on TikTok. The Bill Michaels Show. You can also find us on other platforms like the Twitch app, the Kick app, the LinkedIn app as well. Email the program, thebillmichaels@gmail.com. The website, simply thebillmichaels.com. The app, WOZN, the Zone Madison. You can take us anywhere and everywhere and listen to us. And then you can also track us down after the fact on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts. We are a television program. And that is on My 24 TV in Milwaukee. Saturday nights, 8 o'clock, My 24 TV in Milwaukee. So there you go. Plenty of ways to track us down. Check us out. 877-867-1670. Good stuff. Before we get, I do want to talk some Packers football because there was an interesting point made about, are the Packers elite? And it made me think. I love stuff that makes me think. We'll pass this along to you. But I got to get to Gerard listening to us in Fond du Lac. Gerard, welcome to the program, man. What's going on?
Hey, man. How's it going? Haven't talked to you in a while.
How you been? We're doing good.
Awesome. I'm doing good, too.
Excellent. What's up?
So, just a quick question I've been thinking about since the weekend and watching what Priester did.
Uh-huh.
Is there a team in the MLB that honestly, once Woody gets back and barring, he comes back doesn't do a Jimmy Nelson, but it looks like he's going to be back and great. Is there a team that has a better rotation 1 through 5? And even once you throw in the bullpen, I don't know that there's a team like we rival probably the Dodgers. If you're looking at Freddie, Miz, Quintana, Woody as your 4, and Priester as a 5, Chad Patrick's going to go to the bullpen. You'll have DL Hall and Ashby and Patrick all to be long relievers. And then, of course, you have your leverage guys with Mears, Uribe, I can't think of his name, Big Red. And then McGill, that's going to be your bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a better pitching staff in the entire league.
Man, I tell you what, when you look at, boy, that's a great point. When you think about it this way, the Brewers right now, overall in Major League Baseball, where do you think they rank in, we'll say, like WHIP, which is the total ranking of the team, the pitching staff, the whole thing? Where do you think they rank? They are 18th in WHIP. Appreciate the phone call. They're 18th in WHIP. They're 12th in team ERA. When you look at and as a team now, the Yankees really have about the best staff. The Yankees win in WHIP. The Yankees team's batting average against the Yankees pitching staff is .217. The Brewers are 14th. Teams are batting .239 against the Brewers, which is still really good. It's not necessarily where you want to be. You don't want to get over .240, but .239, pretty good. Team WHIP, they're 1.29. So they're better than a lot, but they're 18th, which is in the lower half. Again, that was because they got off to such a rocky start. They got beat up in some of those games. So, and I don't have like a split, I'm
going to try to get that, ERA over the last 2 months or something.
Let's just say their team ERA or their team WHIP in, say, the month of May, which is really where it started. They were still ranked 18th. You go to June, and where I thought they'd be like number 1, they're 7. They're top 7. The entire month of June, they had the 7th best WHIP. Now, the Yankees are still near the top. The Yankees have been consistent all season long. So when you look at the Yankees and the Rangers, really, those two pitching staffs are probably just as good, just as comparable. But the Brewers go from being the bottom third or the bottom half to being top 10 in the month of June. Really, if you look at the bulk of this, because really like May 23rd, 24th is when the Brewers kind of just started to take off. But in the month of June, the Brewers are, as a team, 1.20 in WHIP, but still the Houston Astros, they've been pitching extremely well, 1.08. Teams are batting .230 against them. They've got 9 out of 11 save opportunities. They've given up only 25 home runs. When you look at the Houston Astros, who've given up 30, the Yankees gave up 27, the Pirates gave up 26, and the Pirates have a pretty good pitching staff, but that's Skeens basically related. Look at the Seattle Mariners with a 1.16 WHIP, but they've given up 43 home runs in the month of June. So in that comparison, the Brewers have pitched pretty damn well in 225 total innings so far.
And I don't know that they rely on one specific thing. Like they're kind of top 12 in strikeouts. They're top 12 in WHIP. I just think most of their pitchers collectively are pretty good at everything.
Correct.
Like when they need to induce a ground ball, they can. When they need to miss bats and get swings and misses, most of the guys on the staff have that. It's a nice staff to have because I don't think they overly rely on one thing to get them through. I think it's a pretty well-rounded group, and that allows them to kind of navigate, most different situations that they're put in.
And the Brewers, by the way, and you're right, but when you talk about swinging and missing, the Brewers are number 4 overall in team strikeouts, pitching-wise, in the month of June, only behind the Astros, the Braves, and the Rays. They've thrown 239 strikeouts. And again, the Astros have had a tremendous, tremendous month of June. Their whip is 1.08, 272 strikeouts. Teams are only batting .214 against them, but they still gave up more home runs than the Brewers have in that sense. Out of all those teams that I mentioned, the Brewers have given up, out of the other top three teams, because the Brewers are number 4, the Brewers have given up less home runs than all of them. And they play in a division in a ballpark that is home run friendly. They're 9 of 11, like I mentioned, in save opportunities. The Braves are only 2 of 4. Tampa Bay is 5 of 9, and the Houston Astros are 11 of 14. So the Brewers have basically capitalized on the most of their save opportunities at a better percentage rate. Their team ERA is just a tick above the Astros. Astros are 2.93. The Brewers are 3.20. The Braves are 3.96, and the Tampa Bay Rays team ERA is 4.11 in the month of June. So the Brewers have pitched extremely well. So going back to his point, he's right. Right now, the way things stand, I'd feel really and a lot of this, you can say the month of June, you can look at Mizorowski coming up. You can look at other guys like Patrick, like Priester, starting to really kick it into high gear. The bullpen has been really, really solid. All of that. 877-867-1670.
I got their whiff percentage. It's about 24.5%, which is about middle of the pack. See, I'm looking through all these different pitching statistics, and I'm waiting to find the one where it's like, that's their thing.
Right.
That's at the top of it. And there isn't really anything. I just think there's nothing they're bad at.
Right.
That way.
Just steady wins the race. Steady wins the race. Now, if you look at, let's just say the month of June, the Brewers hitting, okay? When it comes to what they've been capable of doing, the Brewers are number 5. I mean, here's the other aspect of this. Their bats got hot. They're 5th best in Major League Baseball in the month of June with a team batting average of 266. They're 5th best at OPS 748. So OPS is your totality of it all. But with the teams being ahead of them, the Tigers, the Rays, the Diamondbacks, and the Dodgers, who are all hitting the hell out of the baseball, the Brewers, out of those teams, and even the 5 teams behind them, have the least amount of home runs in the top 10. 26 home runs, where the Tigers have 38, 33 for the Rays, 41 for the Diamondbacks, 39 for the Dodgers. The Orioles with 36, 45 for the Cubs, and 40 for the Twins, and 29 for the Mariners. When you look at the top 10, 30 for the Red Sox. I mean, if you want to go total top 10. The Brewers had the least amount of home runs in that time. The least amount. But when you look at, say, a statistic like stolen bases, they've got 19. The Rays have 26. The Cubs have 20. The Cubs run like crazy. The Cubs have 26. They put a ton of pressure on teams as well. The Brewers on base percentage is in the mix. The Orioles is 316. The Dodgers is 319. The Brewers are 336. They're only behind the Tampa Bay Rays, who are 347. So the Brewers are taking pitches. They're getting hits. Their OPS is good. Their slugging percentage is low because they're not hitting home runs. They're the least amount of home runs out of the top 10. But they're getting on base. They're stealing bases. And they're moving runners over. They've got, like I mentioned, 19 stolen bases, as opposed to the Cubs, who have 26, and 26 for the Tampa Bay Rays. Other than that, the Brewers are 3rd in Major League Baseball in that top 10 group. The Mariners have 26. So the Brewers are getting it done. They just do a lot of things. There's no, like you had mentioned, Grant, you're looking for that one statistic where it jumps out and you go, that's it. There's no moment here. It's just, they're just a solid baseball team.
And I think that's probably true. I can dig through some of the offensive stats, but just the eye test would tell you they're not really unbelievable or amazing at any offensive thing either. You know what I mean? It's not like they never strike out, although I think that's probably something they're good at. They hit their fair share of home runs. They do their fair share of just about everything.
Right.
But if you do that consistently night to night, and Chris Hook is guiding all of these pitchers to be the best versions of themselves, you're just going to win series more often than not.
Right. 100%. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. You want to find us, do it. 877-867-1670. Give us a shout. We'd love to hear from you. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends Joe and Ellen over there at Smoke on the Water and Sloppy Joe's Saloon and Spoon. They had a big weekend, and it's going to be a big 4th of July weekend out in Okachi Lake. It always is. So if you're thinking about heading to Smoke on the Water, whether it's catching fireworks or just over there to take your boat out or just to sit back on the deck and relax and go to the new bourbon bar that they have, which is just an awesome time. Smoke on the Water in Okachi Lake, right there on Wisconsin Avenue in Okachi, Wisconsin. Great place. Or Sloppy Joe's Saloon and Spoon, right there in Hubertus, which is also just a traditional good Wisconsin bar. It's a great place to go for fish fry specifically, but on Hubertus in Hubertus. Smoke on the Water in Okachi, Sloppy Joe's Saloon and Spoon in Hubertus, both places fantastic. More of the Bill Michaels Show coming up next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
And now for the Pella play-by-play, here's Jeff Levering.
Thanks, Gina Della from Pella. What a beautiful day to have new windows and doors installed.
Every day is beautiful because Pella installs year-round during all seasons.
And as Pella goes into another windup, it's so hard to guess that next pitch. The customizations seem endless.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive. Pella has a product line for every budget.
And if it is time for a major upgrade, rest easy by scoring no interest and no payments for up to 2 years.
Pella also provides a free in-home consultation, which includes a no-obligation quote.
That's always a great play because working with one of Pella's design experts is such a wonderful, no-pressure get-together. I know this from experience.
With a range of affordable options and products assembled in the USA, you can get the look you want at a price you can afford.
And there's no reason to wait with this incredible deal going on.
Get no interest and no payment for up to 2 years.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. 6/30/2025.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Bill Michaels Show. Continuing on. Got a lot of Brewers baseball today. Good stuff. Good thoughts today. Bottom of the hour, we'll get into a little bit of a little chatter about the Green Bay Packers and being elite. And I want to get into all of that. Sad news, too, over the weekend. Dave Parker passed away. The Python. I remember Dave when he played for Pittsburgh, going all the way back to the We Are Family team. And then he came to Cincinnati. He had one of the most epic throws ever. You go look it up. He threw on a strike from deep right field to home to gun. I can't remember if it was an all-star game or what it was, but man, he had an absolute cannon from right field and passed away over the weekend. So that was sad news. And also D. Wayne Lucas, the horse trainer, has passed away as well. I knew he was sick. He had gotten an infection. Just a couple of weeks ago, they said, he's been hospitalized. I didn't realize it was that serious. But yeah, D. Wayne Lucas has passed away. So losing a couple of big stars in their sport to see them pass away, it's like, wow. But I tell you what, when you start to see people that you grew up watching and really kind of rooting for, and you start to see them age and pass away, you're like, I know they just had a 50th anniversary for the Big Red Machine, which was really cool to see, but also somewhat sad to see, because you go back to the day when it was, I could go through that whole list of players. You can go behind the plate was Johnny Bench, Pete Rose down at third, who has now passed away, Davey Concepcion, Joe Morgan, who has now passed away, Tony Perez. Then you go around the outfield of Griffey and Foster and Geronimo. Bourbon was one of the relievers. But it was just you just knew the group. And then you start to see some of the guys that came along and performed really, really well after that group. And guys like Dave Parker, who have since passed away. It's like, oh, man, it starts to make you feel old. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to give us a shout, do it. It's kind of like when people look at like the Lombardi Packers, or even if you're a younger generation, you really haven't known losing. You go back to 1996, 95 and 96, when the Packers started to really kind of take off, winning championships. And you're thinking that's, 30 years, right? And you're like, wow, you can go back and almost name every position on those teams, and you don't want to see those guys age. You think of them in their heyday, and then you see them and they've put on pounds, or they've taken off a lot of pounds, and they don't look the same anymore. And you're like, oh boy, that was my youth. That was my childhood. That was who I was cheering for. And now you realize that time has passed on, when you see them after 20, 30 years, like, wow, kind of punch in the face right there. 877-867-1670. If you want to find us, do it. That's a great way to track us down. You can also text us 608-321-1670, 608-321-1670, talking Brewers baseball. This one, let's see here real quick. I got a couple of emails I want to get to. This one's from Robert. Robert says, the question is, do you want to push all your chips to the middle of the table for a 40% shot for 1 year, or do you want to have a 10 to 15% shot every year? If you fail at your 40% shot, you become irrelevant for years after that until you build up enough capital for another high percentage shot. I fear that the interest in the Brewers might fall off in the interim years and would hurt their attendance and their revenue, thus crippling the ability to compete. I would prefer somewhat of a chance every year as opposed to a better chance one year then fade into irrelevance. With the small market to mid-market teams, will they ever have enough clout to install a salary cap? It worked out great for football. Would the result be the same for baseball? That's from Bob. That's the question we're asking. Is at what point do you say you got to go for it? At what point do you say you got to go for it? It paid off for Doug Melvin when he got CC, and CC, believe me, was not here. It would have been great if they won a championship, but he was not here to win a championship. He was here to put them in the postseason, to make them relevant. So everybody got a taste as to what it's like to get to the postseason. And that's the reason they made that move when they fired Ned Yost and went to Dale Swaim, because they had to get there. They knew they were starting to falter. They were starting to stumble down the stretch, and that's when they made the move, knowing it would be disruptive. They knew it, but they had to get to the postseason. It wasn't about winning a championship. It was about getting to the postseason. Well, now you kind of go like you got to walk before you run, right? And you got to crawl before you walk. So they crawled for a long time. Then they were walking. Now you got to walk before you run. But at what point do you begin to run? At what point do you believe like, hey, we can run? What would make you a believer? Is it a team that has everything? Because I don't know if there's any team out there that has everything unless you can buy it. And even the Dodgers, with what pitching they have, they've been so beat up when it comes to their ability to win. They've still been winning almost in spite of, don't get me wrong. But when you look at the Dodgers and all the guys that have been banged up, Glasnow, River Ryan, Sosky, Snell, Blake Snell went down, Gavin Stone, shoulder surgery last year. Was it Gonsolin? Had the elbow issue. Grove was another one. Who was it? Evan Phillips had Tommy John surgery this month. They've got so many guys that have gone down when you talk about their injured list just for pitchers. So, and Kyle Hurt had surgery for Tommy John last year. And I think the same thing for River Ryan, if I'm not mistaken. So they've had a lot of guys go down, but again, they have the ability to just buy more. They can just buy more. They got Yamamoto, they got Kershaw, they got May. Ohtani's now back throwing. They just, here you go, no big deal. That's the difference between the Dodgers and the Brewers, is they can just go buy them. It's okay. We got 15 guys down, no big deal. We'll go buy them. Whereas if you had 15 guys go down pitching-wise for the Brewers, it'd cripple this thing. This thing would come to a screeching halt, unfortunately. 877-867-1670. But that's why I say, at what point do you look at it and go, got to go for it? Because you don't know when that injury bug's going to hit. The Brewers have been, knock on wood, pretty lucky in that sense. Aaron says, hey, Bill, I'm always in favor of a team going all in. I don't care if it's the Brewers, Packers, or Bucks, so I'm never opposed to trying. I just think that the Brewers are better off going all in with a free agent pickup rather than with in-season trades. Just because of their financial situation, their prospects are extra valuable because they just can't go out and buy whoever they want or need. That's why it's so important to bring in guys like Willy Adames or bring them back or sign them in free agency. Then the in-season trades aren't as drastic and therefore don't cost you the valuable prospects. My main point is they would make more productive headway in going all in if they did more in the offseason rather than at the trade deadline. Happy 4th of July week. And Aaron, that's a great point. Now, the one area that I can say, and I do believe Suarez, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Suarez his contract is up. So if you go to get a guy like Suarez, even though the price is starting to go up a little bit, if you get a guy like Suarez, I believe that when you grab him, it's not going to cost as much because the Diamondbacks already know that they're not bringing him back, not for that amount of money. I'd have to check. I'm going to go scroll through this now. But I believe that him making the $13 million this year, which is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, to be perfectly honest with you. But they know, so he's an unrestricted free agent after this season because he went through his first 4 years in Cincinnati, then a couple of years in Seattle, and they signed him to a 2-year deal in Arizona. So it's actually, it was a 1-year deal when he was with arbitration in Cincinnati. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of, he doesn't have a ton of, signed a 7-year, $66 million deal with Cincinnati, including the $2 million signing bonus. Suarez going to earn $15 million in carrying the salary, blah, 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 and then kind of break it all down. But yeah, when you go through, when he got traded, I should say, when he signed the deal with Cincinnati, he got traded to Seattle, then traded to Arizona. He's making $15 million this year. He's never made more than this. Now, granted, he's putting up some really, really solid numbers, but this is it for him. So you're going to pick a guy up for maybe it costs you a prospect or two because you're only going to get him for a few months because you know he's going to hit the open market and make quite a bit of money. Yeah, that might not be a bad way to go for the Brewers because it's not going to cost you a ton. You would assume not anyway, depending on what the bidding does. So sometimes it only takes one team to really drive it up and get stupid, but that might not be a bad way to go. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. I do want to talk a little bit about being elite. And are the Green Bay Packers elite? The question is this: how many elite players do they have? We've gone down this road before. This portion of the program brought to you by the WIMI Wish Ride, which is coming up here in August. WIMI Wish Ride. WIMIWishRide.org. It's August 9th and 10th, and it's going to benefit Make-A-Wish Wisconsin and Make-A-Wish Michigan. And it's a bicycle ride, not a motorcycle ride. And it basically is this. It goes from Marinette, Wisconsin to Kingsford, Michigan. If you are a bicyclist and you are a long-distance bicyclist, this is for you. This is for you. There's two things. One, it's a great ride, very scenic ride. Two, raises money for a really good cause, Make-A-Wish, okay? Both here in Wisconsin and in Michigan. Two things you would love to do and love to be a part of. That's it. Go to WIMIWishRide.org. That's WIMIWishRide.org. You can go there. You can get signed up. You can see all the information. You can see when and where everything goes. That's a ride from Marinette, Wisconsin to Kingsford, Michigan on the 9th and then back again on the 10th. You can find all everything, the 200-mile round-trip ride, and all you got to do is go to WIMIWishRide.org, WIMIWishRide.org, and do a great thing, not only bicycling and feeling good about what you're doing your ride, but also do a great thing for kids that have those wishes. That would be fantastic. Do that as well. WIMIWishRide.org.
Ready? This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
I think to win a Super Bowl, you have to have 7 elite players, generally close to their prime or just out of it. At least like 5 to 6 really high-end players. So I look at Detroit, and I think Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon St. Brown, Hutchison, Penei Sewell. I like Green Bay's running back, Josh Jacobs. The receiving core I thought was incredibly promising at the beginning of last year. Do they have 6 elite players? Because that's kind of what wins the Super Bowl. Philadelphia certainly just did.
Do the Packers have 6 to 7 elite players? We'll answer that momentarily. This portion of the program brought to you by our friends over there at Stoley's Hog Alley and Lake Country. They were packed this weekend. A lot of rides. Stolzo 109 in Watertown as well. County Road R to be exact. Both places fantastic to eat at, fantastic to ride to, and two just great owners, Jeff and Alicia Stoll. They're just fantastic people. Whether you're going in for the fish fry on Friday night or you're just riding and you want a beverage, just a place to cool off, or you just want to sit outside on the patio and enjoy the weather while it lasts. That's our friends at Stoley's Hog Alley and Lake Country on Venice Beach Road in Oconomowoc, or Stoll's Old 109 on County Road R in Watertown. Both of them fantastic. Fantastic. Are the Packers elite? Who is elite on this Green Bay Packers squad when you think about it? And if you go by what Colin Cowherd stated, saying you need, now go back to the year that they won it, that they won the Super Bowl, okay? You start to look at it and you go, okay, they had a lot of elite players. You start with Charles Woodson and Aaron Rodgers, and you trickle down from there. You know, you have Gray Jennings, elite. You had Nick Collins, elite. You had Jordy Nelson, elite. You know, you start to go through that. You had both your left and right tackles were elite, right? You had guys up front. Ryan Pickett probably had one of his best years, played elite at that time. B.J. Raji really started out that way. Were they the best? Elite? I don't know if they were elite. But then you had an emerging Tremont Williams, Sam Shields, both coming under Charles Woodson's wing. You had an elite guy in Clay Matthews. You had a really good tight end at the time in Jermichael Finley, even though he didn't play in that game because of injury. But you had quite a few guys that were elite. Donald Driver, for that slot receiver that he was, the 7th round draft choice, was elite. All those guys came into their own. And that whole thing emerged all at one point in time. So now you think to yourself, who is elite for this Packers team? And you need at least 2 or 3 position players of specialty, like wide receivers, like secondary guys, like a edge rusher that are elite. So you ask yourself, who's elite on this team? And you go through this. I think Tucker Kraft is elite. I think Elton Jenkins, if they get this whole deal, and I would assume they would get this whole deal worked out, he can be elite when it comes to being an all-pro guy up front. Kenny Clark, elite. I think Edrin Cooper can be elite. Xavier McKinney is elite. I think in my questionable category, where they need to be elite this season, Jordan Love is number 1 on that list, which, by the way, congratulations to him on the nuptials. Josh Jacobs is elite. Is that enough guys to win a Super Bowl? Is there anybody that would be considered in the elite category that I'm missing, Grant?
Or maybe make the case for Kenny Clark, I guess.
Yeah. Kenny Clark.
But
yeah.
I guess it's not my problem, but my follow-up to that is, like, I don't know that Edrin Cooper is yet. I hope that he can be. And I don't know that Tucker Kraft can be. I know he's really good. Like, you mentioned some guys who are right there. If you're asking me who's guaranteed to be elite, I think Xavier McKinney and Josh Jacobs.
That's the 2 that are elite, and then Elton Jenkins and Kenny Clark. There's 4 that have proven they can be elite.
And Kenny Clark might be over the hill. He was hurt last year.
Right.
I need to see him come back and be elite again before I'm really comfortable even saying that.
Right. So do the Packers have that legitimate shot at a Super Bowl with 4 guys you can consider to be elite? And then, so those 4 guys have, when you talk about Pro Bowls, those 4 guys have gotten it done. Now you go, what is that next level? The next level is Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft. That would give you 6. As far as elite goes. I don't think they have that, quote, elite wide receiver. They don't have a Greg Jennings. They don't have a Jordy Nelson. Not right now, they don't. Not in your specialty position. They've got a deep pool. And I think Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave are both as good as Jermichael Finley was, and Tucker Kraft might even be better.
one of those pass catchers could emerge. But again, if we're talking about right now today, we're not sure about that.
Right. And again, on the could side, Edrin Cooper. But do I believe Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs, Carrington Valentine, Javon Bullard, Micah Robinson, any of those guys, do I think they're going to suddenly become elite in that secondary? Maybe collectively? I just, when you, and this goes back to our argument a while ago, you can really buy in the offseason and go, wow, they made some deals, man. They picked up some guys. I love Barron Sorrell. I love the Micah Robinson at the back end of that draft deal. I love Warren Brinson. You're adding the beef up front. That 6th-round draft choice. Hell yeah, That Colin Oliver, he could end up being really, really good. And then you start to think about it. And you're like, boy, Anthony Belton, 2nd-round draft choice, giving you big depth at the tackle position. They've got some guys on the front side now that can maybe be road graders. Matthew Golden, 1st overall pick for the Green Bay Packers in the 1st round this year, that type of thing. Getting themselves a wide receiver. Savion Williams, kind of your gadget guy. Okay, we can get into all of that. And then picking up Aaron Banks in the offseason. I just don't know how much of elite is there. So we buy in the offseason going, they filled these holes. These were some of the things that were bringing this team down. But you got to figure the other teams that were better than you filled holes too. Probably have gotten better, you would assume. The only thing that's a big question mark, like in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, is the same thing over in Minnesota, is how good is the quarterback going to be? How good is J.J. McCarthy? How good is Jordan Love going to be this year? The year after the injury, the year after the year, because the year that he had his first season under center, it just continually got better to the point where you're like, wow. And then he got a contract off of it. Last year was not terrible. It wasn't like he played bad. It just wasn't to that elite level that we were expecting. And I think you need to be elite to take your team deep into the postseason. And defensively, they got better. They got better last year defensively. They got near a lot of the categories that we were saying, hey, get near the top 10 and this thing's going to be a lot better. They were near that. They accomplished a lot of that. Now, how much better can they get? But I think this is going to hinge on the offense. You can look at a team like Detroit. Detroit's going to get better. And Detroit already pound for pound was the best team in the division. We're just banking on the fact that they got worse because of their coaching staff, because everybody left. But you still have Aiden Hutchinson who's coming back. You still have DJ Reader. You still have Marcus Davenport. You still have Anzalone. Jack Campbell. You still have those guys running around. Kirby Joseph. They picked up DJ Reed to solidify the secondary and the cornerback position from New York. They needed a new center. Their center retired. You're like, well, boy, but they picked up Tate Redledge. Tate Redledge in the 2nd round. Now, I don't know if he's going to be an all-pro. We'll have to wait and see, but they picked him up. They had to know something was going on. They still got a pretty solid offensive line. And they still have Sam Laporta over there at the tight end position, Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I mean, they got a hell of a running back situation. Amara St. Brown is not showing any signs of slacking off. So you figure they got better. Because the only thing offensively that they had to exchange was Tate Ratledge at center. And they bolstered, they got better in their secondary. So they're feeling really good, and getting everybody back and healthy they're feeling good about their situation. So did the Packers get elite enough, better enough to be better than not only Minnesota, but Detroit as well? 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Hey, multiple teams have talked to the Steelers as to whether they can trade for TJ Watt. Pittsburgh hasn't shown any willingness to deal Watt so far, but he's unhappy with his contract right now, as we all know, and sources believe outside the team interest, it's likely to increase given today's trade that went down. Remember, if you didn't know, Jalen Ramsey from Miami was traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick and some other considerations to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Ramsey in the secondary going over to Pittsburgh, Minkah Fitzpatrick going to Miami, which changes things a little bit. So
Steelers fans probably had the same moment today the Packers fans had last offseason, where it's like, can you believe that we have Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones?
Right.
Like, can you believe we have Jalen Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick? Only to learn that he was the actual trade piece.
Yeah, and they just basically swapped two guys that wanted greener grass. That was it. So, interesting stuff there. But in case you're just tuning us in, that trade went down, and now there's discussion as to whether or not they'd move TJ Watt. You got to think, and if you're a Steelers fan, you're like, what is actually happening? You know? You picked up Metcalf, and you're like, okay, Metcalf, Pickens, you got two really good weapons. Here comes your quarterback. You got a stout defense. Then Pickens goes. You're like, okay, well, you got DK Metcalf, all right, but you still got a staunch defense, and they're going to work this out with TJ Watt eventually. And then you figure, yeah, Jalen Ramsey, wow. And then you find out that, well, Minkah Fitzpatrick's gone. So they didn't really bolster. They just swapped two guys that wanted greener pastures. And you still have the same problem you woke up with today, and that is how to sign TJ Watt. You're kind of thinking to yourself, what's going on? You're just swapping out pieces. And let's be honest, Jalen Ramsey hasn't been Jalen Ramsey since he left LA. He's been good, but he hasn't been great, that level of great. And he wanted out of Miami. What's going on in Miami, too? That's the other thing.
They're just stuck betwixt and between. Like, they're paying Tua, but they're not good enough with Tua. So they're just shuffling around deck chairs, basically is what it feels like.
It seems like there's more than a few people that just want the hell out of Miami. And it was supposed to be this incredible place to play, and with this incredible head coach that was this whisperer, you know, and McDaniel he had his good season. And then it seems like since then, it's just kind of fallen by the wayside. You know, they still have Waddle. Tyreek Hill, who wanted out, said peace out at the end of last season. And apparently they talked to him until he finally went, okay, I'm coming back, but he's coming back on his terms. He wants the ball. I don't know what's going on down there. It's kind of a weird situation. And now they got, like I said, they got Minkah Fitzpatrick over the free safety position. But it's like, wow, a lot of things going on down in Miami where it just doesn't seem like anybody's happy. And remember, McDaniel was the guy that came in last year and talked about, you know, accountability to each other, and then really didn't do it. And there was talk this year at one of the mini camps, some of the guys saying, you know, we have to start it with discipline and self-discipline. And it started with showing up to meetings on time. Like, what? You have guys that aren't showing up to meetings on time? What is your head coach doing? If he doesn't have the ability to put his arms around the organization and say this kind of crap is not going to be tolerated, then you're already screwed. So that's just a whole weird deal. 877-867-1670. Hit us up. Are the Packers, do they have enough, really, when it comes to elite talent, or what you consider to be elite talent, to really truthfully be considered for a Super Bowl? We were talking about that last week. Should the Packers be considered one of those top teams? This portion of the program brought to you by our friends at Robert's Specialty Meats in Waukesha. And I'm sure a lot of you were tailgating over the weekend. A lot of you stopped down there. A lot of you had the sausages, the ribs on a stick, everything that goes along with it. Good stuff. I'm going to be grilling out a little bit tonight myself, as a matter of fact. That's our friends at Robert's Specialty Meats Waukesha, whether it's the meats, the steaks, the chops, maybe even some of the deli items that they have, whether it's the potato salad. Their pasta salad is absolutely fantastic. Oh, my God, it's so good. I was still eating that stuff 5 days after the baby shower last week. Oh, God, it was so good. But whatever it happens to be, they've got it. And they carry a lot of Wisconsin-made products like spreadable cheeses and such. So stop down. Sunset Drive in Waukesha. That's Robert's Specialty Meats, Waukesha.com. That's Robert's Specialty Meats, Waukesha.com.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
And now for the Pella play-by-play, here's Jeff Levering.
Thanks, Gina Della from Pella. What a beautiful day to have new windows and doors installed.
Every day is beautiful because Pella installs year-round during all seasons.
And as Pella goes into another windup, it's so hard to guess that next pitch. The customizations seem endless.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive. Pella has a product line for every budget.
And if it is time for a major upgrade, rest easy by scoring no interest and no payments for up to 2 years.
Pella also provides a free in-home consultation, which includes a no-obligation quote.
That's always a great play because working with one of Pella's design experts is such a wonderful, no-pressure get-together. I know this from experience.
With a range of affordable options and products assembled in the USA, you can get the look you want at a price you can afford.
And there's no reason to wait with this incredible deal going on.
Get no interest and no payment for up to 2 years.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. 6/30/2025.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Got a lot more to get to. Still another hour yet to go. Let's talk some more Packers. Got a lot of stuff over on the text line that I want to get to, which is fantastic. And we'll get into your thoughts there. Also some Brewers chatter. In case you missed it, Bob Nightingale from USA Today, senior baseball writer, wrote a nice piece on the Milwaukee Brewers. Like, how do they just keep doing it? You know, how do the Brewers just keep on plugging away? And wrote a nice piece about the crew and how Milwaukee, and actually the cool line is, how do the Brewers keep doing this? Milwaukee keeps its secrets in the keg. So You're going to hear Bob Nightingale coming up bottom of the hour. Don't go anywhere. Another hour of the Bill Michaels Show. You have to go. We'll be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Brewers are getting the day off after failing to close out the Rockies yesterday in what turned into a 4-3 extra innings loss. It wasn't for a lack of production from Sal Frelick. He had 3 of the team's 6 hits, now batting .350 since being moved into the leadoff spot in the middle of June. Manager Pat Murphy was asked afterwards whether Frelick has done enough to claim that spot for the rest of the year.
This is baseball, like things happen. But, he's doing a good job. The 3 hits, one's a bloop, one's a smash, and the other one's an infield hit. But he's capable of all that. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's got a good on-base percentage. He's very, very capable, and he's very clutch.
Milwaukee headed out for its final road trip before the All-Star break. They will play 3 games in New York against the Mets and then head to Florida to face the Marlins for another 3 games. They close out the first half of the season with series against the Dodgers and Nationals at home. Turning to the Bucks, they're bringing Bobby Portis back on a 3-year, $44 million deal. He missed a large stretch of games due to a suspension last year, but finished the year averaging 13.9 points and 8.4 rebounds per game. Meanwhile, Kevin Porter Jr. let his player option expire and will become a free agent.
ABC of Wisconsin is the largest apprenticeship program in the state, with more than 2,000 active apprentices in 12 different skilled trades. In the ABC apprenticeship program, you earn while you learn on the job, get paid to go to class, and graduate with a job in your craft, but without the huge college debt. Explore 12 different construction trades in one spot at buildyourcareerwi.org or just search online for ABC of Wisconsin.
Well, the Badgers had a couple of big recent recruiting wins, getting a commitment from 4-star wide receiver Jaden Pettit last Thursday and 4-star running back Amari Latimer on Saturday. The two become the highest-rated players in Wisconsin's 2026 recruiting class. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
I think to win a Super Bowl, you have to have 7 elite players, generally close to their prime or just out of it. At least like 5 to 6 really high-end players. So I look at Detroit, and I think Detroit, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon St. Brown, Hutchison, Penei Sewell. I like Green Bay's running back, Josh Jacobs. The receiving core I thought was incredibly promising at the beginning of last year. Do they have 6 elite players? Because that's kind of what wins the Super Bowl. Philadelphia certainly just did.
Do the Packers have at least 6 elite players? 877-867-1670. Hit us up. You want to text us? I'll get some notes off the text line coming up, 608-321-1670. News of the day out of the NFL. The Steelers traded for cornerback Jalen Ramsey, and Minkah Fitzpatrick now off to Miami, and some other considerations. But they made a deal, as both guys looking for greener pastures. Jalen Ramsey wanting out of Miami. Ends up in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's still trying to work out a deal with T.J. Watt, trying to get him happy. Some of the other big names still, there's been no movement in the, you talk about edge rushers, Trey Hendrickson's still sitting out there as well, that he is not going to participate until he gets a new deal. I know that talks have been going on there at little length.
Again, I think the Bengals are just behind closed doors like, maybe he'll just forget.
Right.
Maybe that seems to be their strategy. That's their strategy so far. Yeah. Maybe he'll just forget that he wants a new contract if we just don't do anything.
Yep. I completely agree. Yeah, that's just such a cluster. It's
just so funny. Like in the first offseason activities, he's like, I want a new deal or I'm not going to play. And the Bengals are like, okay. And then they don't do anything.
Right.
And then they ask to report again. And he's like, I told you I was not going to play on this. It's just such a clown car of a situation.
It's just so they can't get out of their own way. It's like just every time you think it's, and I don't want to dwell on Cincinnati, but it's always one step forward and two step backwards. It's like you just can't get over, it's just, God, it's always just so craptastic. It just is. Yeah, it's just, they just always kind of pee down their leg, for lack of a better term. It just is. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. If you want to find us, please feel free. Go ahead and do so. Again, 877-867-1670. You can also track us down via YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Bill Michaels Show. You can subscribe absolutely free. No charge for that. You can find us on Twitter, on X, @Bill_Michaels. Find Grant @Wisco Grant. And you can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and back on TikTok. For whatever reason, we've been allowed back on after 2 months in exile. But we've been allowed back on. I got the note today. We are on the Twitch app, the Kick app, the LinkedIn app as well, all under The Bill Michaels Show or a conglomeration thereof. Email the program, thebillmichaels@gmail.com. The website, simply thebillmichaels.com. The app is WOZN, The Zone Madison. And then you can find us over on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts as well. So there you go for all that different stuff and all the ways to find us. And don't forget about the television show on Saturday nights, 8 o'clock Central Time. And that is on My 24 TV in Milwaukee. My 24 TV in Milwaukee. So there you go. Going back to this, the Packers and the discussion regarding a Super Bowl, are they elite? Are they elite? I when we talk about elite, and to answer Jack's question, Jack said, well, what do you mean by elite? The best at their positions in the entire league? No, I don't. I mean, I'm talking about Pro Bowl status. Like, can they be Pro Bowlers or are they Pro Bowlers? They've got guys, Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Kenny Clark, Elton Jenkins. Those guys have been there, done that. Okay. I don't care what is stated regarding the Green Bay Packers. If the quarterback doesn't play elite, then they're not going anywhere anyway. So it's all a moot point. You can have the best of the best, and if your quarterback is average at best or just above average, you're not going to go anywhere. We know that. So when you get into the elite side of things, John Middlecoff, who was kind of expounding upon what Colin Cowherd had to say, had this to say about elite in the Packers.
I think they're very beholden on and predicated on the quarterback playing really well. And 2 years ago down the stretch, he was a top 6-7 guy in the league the way he played. Last year, obviously, was really bumpy. So, I mean, if he's a Pro Bowl guy, he definitely has the physical characteristics. I think the question mark on him coming into the season is very fair. I'm with you on Jacobs. I think Kenny Clark is an excellent player. Xavier McKinney, who they signed from the Giants, was excellent last year. I think their receiving unit, I'm with you. I mean, there were high hopes for a couple of those guys, concussions, injuries. Watson couldn't catch. Now he's got a torn ACL. To me, I'm with you. Like, do they have the Justin Jeffersons and the Micah Parsons and the Freddie Warners? I think you could push back on that, and that's more than fair. Coaching staff's pretty damn good. Like, their talent is good, right? They won 11 games last year and went 1-5. So they are a good team. This is a team sport. That's why I push back always on the NBA. There's more talent than ever. Well, it's not an individual sport. It's a team game. So it's like, are the teams that good? And so I think the Packers are probably better as a group than they are individually. They won 11 games where the quarterback was banged up and they won one division game.
So not to be the first to jump on this, I agree that the Packers culture is really good, but I think the Lions also have a really good coaching culture, and everyone loves Kevin O'Connell. So it's not like the rest of the division is a bunch of clown cars that can't get it together. Like, if the Packers' strength is coaching quarterback, I think that's also a strength of the other two teams in the division they're trying to beat.
The only thing you can say is coaching quarterback, you don't know what that combination is going to be in Minnesota. You assume Kevin O'Connell is going to be really good, and you assume J.J. McCarthy will be, but you don't know. And coaching quarterback, where you lost your offensive coordinator, and you lost a lot of your assistants as well along the way in Detroit. So you don't know, other than your head coach and your quarterback, you don't know what that's going to be like. So there are question marks there. because of that. But what has remained the same is the coaching staff, the quarterback, and such in Green Bay. You got a new coach and quarterback in Chicago. So really, when you look at the advantage, it's advantage Packers in that particular sense. But again, it's goes back to how elite can Jordan Love be? Because we know the talent, as was just stated, the talents are there. We've seen it. We've been told the talents are there. You know, you go all the way back to when we sat down at Super Bowl with Brian Billick, and we were talking with Josh Jacobs, and we talked with Greg Cosell, and we talked with people that evaluate talent, watch talent, know it inside the huddle, all three aspects. So it's there. It's just whether or not that actually is achieved. If it's achieved, then I think the Packers are off and running. But I think what was stated there in the beginning of that was sometimes you're better collectively. You may not have elite guys at every position. You may not have Fred Warner and George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Bosa, and you may not have that group of dudes. But as a group of players, you have and he was right. You had a team that won 11 games with a banged up quarterback. The only teams they didn't beat were the teams that were just basically above them. So they were on the verge of being there. And then you come back and healthy and a little bit better with some of the holes filled, you would expect better. Now, I still say 11 wins, but I think 11 wins in this particular schedule, that's really good. That would be somewhat elite. Until you beat the Lions and knock the Lions off, I can't say that right now. But I think that they're there, but it's you're plus or minus depending on the quarterback play. And I think that's fair. Ryan of Manitowoc, for me, it's more a prove it than elite. They have players, I think, who have potential, but not a team of elite players. Bill, I have a question for you. Is if the season just bombs, they struggle against the NFC North, not serious injuries, does the question then turn into, do we rebuild? Rick from Spencer says, if Love doesn't become elite, nor will the team. And then out of the 612 says, I have a solution for Jordan Love. Put a 10-pound weight on his back foot so he stops throwing off of the back foot. He watched Rodgers do it for so many years, he just picked up that nasty habit. And then Chris in Chippewa says, Tucker Kraft reminds me of a lot younger version of George Kittle. Which I think that's good. Yeah, if he becomes George Kittle, then you picked up a hell of a tight end. But all of them basically say the same thing. And that is, if Jordan Love becomes elite, Packers are elite. That's it.
Who do you think at the end of this season, if you had to bet your mortgage right now, at the end of this upcoming season, who do you think will be saying is the best quarterback in the NFC North? Because there's questions or limitations or certain factors with, I think, all four of these guys. But I think by the end of this year, McCarthy will just be starting for 1 year. But I think by the end of this season, we'll have just about all the clarity on Jordan Love we're going to get. We'll have a pretty good idea of what Caleb Williams is with a real coach. And I think we'll kind of have an idea of J.J. McCarthy. And Jared Goff, I think, is the one guy who remains the same. But the questions with Jared Goff isn't how good is he. It's more like, can he win that biggest playoff game? And he'll get another opportunity to do that. So if you had to bet at the end of this year, who do you think we're walking away from this season thinking that's the best quarterback in the division?
That's a great question. My gut reaction is to say Jordan Love. And the reason being is because of the injuries, mechanics, going away and working on mechanics, some of the things that Mike had told us about, throwing deep balls and dropping dimes and timing and all that kind of stuff. And third year is your breakout year. So all those things begin to stack up. But my negatives are not even so much the off-scripted plays and some of the off-balance throws. My argument was some of the decision-making, where the window closed before he pulled the trigger, and some of the decisions to throw the football up into traffic. Because we saw that at the end of his first season under center. We saw it again last year. Those were the negatives, where he turned the ball over. And in the beginning of the season, he was turning it over so much that it became a focus on talk shows nationally and locally, to where they backed him down so much where he couldn't make his own decisions almost. And I thought that was kind of a telltale sign. So my first gut reaction is the advancement, third year, the game begins to slow down for you, everything, Jordan Love. That's my gut reaction. Then I think, well, and also through the negative side of things of losing your offensive coordinator and that guy in Ben Johnson, and that's going to kind of set back Jared Goff. J.J. McCarthy getting his first year look at it. I can't pick him. And Caleb Williams was Caleb Williams last year. But if I had to pick another guy, I would not venture far away from Caleb Williams, because if indeed, with all the talent he has, if indeed he's the guy and Ben Johnson is the whisperer of offense the way he's appeared to be in Detroit, then we'll probably walk away from the season going, wow, what an incredible season that Caleb Williams had, and Bears fans are finally pontificating about finding a quarterback. And then I would say it's Caleb Williams. Jared Goff is, we know what Jared Goff is. If they can just pick up where they left off, he'll be the guy.
Jared Goff, the quarterback, is not what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out what he can accomplish in the biggest moments.
Right.
So we kind of know, like, we can put him in a box. The other three guys, I don't know. I think you'd be hard pressed to find another division in football that feels more wide open.
Right. I would agree with that. But if I had to sit here today and you put a gun in my head and said, who are we going to talk about at the end of the season being the best quarterback in the NFC? Because I've seen him do it, I would have to say Jordan Love. If there's the two things that we had mentioned, one, the mechanics and the decision-making.
If you just look at the best ball that each one of these guys has played, isolate their best month ever, that would be Jordan Love. Right. Like the best tools and the best ability is better than Jared Goff. We just don't know what the other guys yet. Sorry to cut you off.
Steven says Williams makes terrible decisions. Yeah, but he only played 1 year. The whole Caleb Williams thing, Steven, is the same as Trevor Lawrence playing under Urban Meyer his first year. That whole thing last year with Eberflus and company was a train wreck. And in reality, maybe Caleb Williams did more with less.
He didn't turn the ball over. Hanging on to the ball and being like he was questioning and he was hesitant, but it's not like he was throwing 2 or 3 picks a game. That was actually probably the most redeeming part of his season, is he, for the most part, protected the ball and the possession.
Right. And the fact that he came in his first year and didn't play poorly, just, they were in position to win games. They had 5 games that won on the last score. They could have won. The defense made some boneheaded plays, some bad decision-making via coaching. They had Detroit beat. They had the Commanders beat. Their offensive line was terrible. So, and they went out and made sure the offensive line got better. And they found a coach that knows how to, at least seemingly knows how to coach, as opposed to the guy in the deer in the headlights was Eberflus, who just via clock management single-handedly lost a game in Detroit.
The reason that I'll cut Caleb Williams more slack than a lot of Packers people will is the biggest issue with the Bears last year was their coaching and their disorganization. And I feel like you can directly see that projected on the way Caleb Williams played.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Caleb Williams' struggles seem so tied to what the problem was.
Exactly.
So I have good reason to believe that if they fix that problem, then Caleb Williams won't be what he looked like last year. We don't know that to be sure, but I think that A plus B equals C, or 1, 2, 3. Like, that seems to be logical for you.
I get it. Yeah, I agree with you. So it's hard for me to sit here and go, well, you got to count Caleb Williams out, because I just think he's going to be better. And his second year should slow down. His third year is probably going to be better, but his second year should slow down for him, especially if he's got a guy that can say, here's what you're thinking. And then suddenly that cloud of scattered lifts, if Ben Johnson's able to do that. 877-867-1670. Hit us up, 877-867-1670. I had a great time this past weekend. I got to say thanks to our friends at Buzzard Billy's. It was a joy. We had some great margaritas. We had some really terrific food. The beer cheese soup was awesome. Got some boneless wings out there on Friday night. Just had a little dinner all by myself. Just went in and said hello to a few people. And man, did we have a good time upstairs at the Starlight Lounge on Saturday. I told you I had a Thin Mint Martini, which was awesome. And they had a little Sinatra playing in the background, and it was just so good. Just so good. Both places are fantastic. So thanks to our friends and staff and management over there at Buzzard Billy's, the Starlight Lounge upstairs on Pearl Street in La Crosse, Wisconsin. We had a wonderful, wonderful weekend, due in part because of them.
This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Tomorrow night, it's supposed to be beautiful, at least in this area, but if you're going to be heading out tomorrow night on the motorcycle like I'm going to be doing, Suburban Harley-Davidson is bike night. And they've got all their licensing and such together, so tomorrow night, adult beverages will be served at Wayne's Drive-In. So on one side, you get the ice cream treats. On the other side, you got the adult beverages and everything in between. That's our friends over there at Suburban Harley-Davidson, Wayne's Drive-In, Tuesday night bike nights at Wayne's Drive-In. It's been a lot of fun, and all the licensing now is done, and they've got their whole Tuesday night bike night going, a little bit of music going on. Family-owned, community-minded, that is Suburban Harley-Davidson. Go to suburbanharley.com. That's suburbanharley.com. And don't forget, they are the landing spot this year where we're going to end up on the 18th annual Big Unit Poker Run. Look for a lot of that stuff to come out tonight. Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait. All the official launch stuff is going to go out this evening. Looking forward to it. Again, family-owned, community-minded, Suburban Harley-Davidson, getting back to the roots. Go to suburbanharley.com if you want a new ride, new two-wheel ride, or maybe even three-wheel ride for that matter, to join us on Sunday, August 31st in the 18th annual Big Unit Poker Run, raising money in support of Fisher House, Wisconsin for Big Unit Foundation. We cannot wait. We are so looking forward to it. Getting back to the roots this year. Heading out to a Harley dealer. And what better Harley dealer when you talk about roots and family-owned and community-minded than one that's been there in the same family in the same spot for 50 years. That's Suburban Harley-Davidson. Go to suburbanharley.com. Suburbanharley.com. Got a couple of emails that I want to get to as well. And this is from DK. DK says, hey, guys, I think the Packers are elite as a team, not specific individuals. There are a couple of individuals that we could look at and say if they have good seasons, they will be elite. But then again, you can say that about a lot of different teams, which is true. He says, I think Jordan Love has to play elite to lift the rest of this team up on his shoulders. He doesn't have to do it alone, but he has to play that way to then be that leader. Otherwise, he's just another guy on an otherwise pretty decent team, but not elite. 877-867-1670. You can find us there. Thanks, DK. Thanks for the email. Appreciate it. I think that's kind of what it is we've been saying, that for everything the Packers have done, I think it comes back to whether or not Jordan Love is going to play elite. I want to go back to Ryan in Manitowoc, who texted us. He said, let's say the season bombs. They're struggling again in the NFC North. You don't have a lot of serious injuries. Do you now question whether or not you turn this thing into a rebuild? If you now, depending on what you mean by the season bombing, say they win 10 games but don't get in the postseason, and they don't win again in the NFC North. Say it's another one-win season in the NFC North. I don't know if I'd go to the term rebuild, but if what you're saying without a lot of injuries is true, I'd have to see how they got from point A to point B. And now if you're saying, hey, Jordan Love played the same, the defense was good, they weren't great, you had drops in the wide receiver position, okay, then yeah, you might. I'm not going to say there's ever going to be this rebuild, but you're probably going to get rid of some of your higher end talent. You're going to go through the draft and develop, maybe spend some money in free agency. But I'll tell you this, that the bigger picture would not be as far as the personnel on the field. The bigger picture would be, what does Ed Policy do? Because you got Goody and Russ Ball, Matt LaFleur, all coming into the second. They got 2 years left on their deals. Does Ed Policy say, I'm not going to renew these guys? They're going to have another. I don't want to go lame duck, but we might be forced to do so. Or does he just make a change and say, look, we'll pay you out of your last year because this is not the level of performance we want? If you see a team that's fighting their ass off and they're just not getting it done, they're not making a lot of these dumb mistakes like we saw in the past, then you may say, okay, maybe it's a talent. Maybe Goody's drafted well, but not great. Hasn't done well enough. Maybe they make that change. If you see talent on the field, but you see a lot of dumb mistakes, pre-snap penalties, the same things over and over again, bad clock management, Matt LaFleur might be out of a job.
I like how you're saying it depends on what it looks like.
Right.
Because a 10-win season can take many different forms. I will say, Packers fans, if they win the same amount of games this year that they did last year, unless some crazy circumstances go down, I think that's a resounding success with this schedule, which is much harder than last year. And I assume that if they win 11 games this year, it's not going to happen by way of like only one win in the division. I think it'll probably shake out a little bit more balanced. Like, I think there's a world in which they win the same amount of games that they did last year. And we say, this season has been way better. This team is playing way better, and Jordan Love is playing way better.
This season's tone will be set in game one. I really believe that.
I like that.
If they lose to the Lions again and then turn around and lose in 3 days to the Commanders, I think they're an 8-win team at best. If they come out and they beat Detroit and beat the Commanders And I'm not saying split. I'm saying you're going to do one or the other. I don't think you're going to lose to Detroit and beat the Commanders or vice versa. I don't think that. Because statistically, you know, first of all, you're opening up at home. You're opening up against a rival. You're opening up against a team that really hasn't hit the ground running because of all the coaching changes. So you got them at a good time.
And a team that you should be motivated as ever to beat.
Oh, God,
like there's no reason they shouldn't be pissed off and ready to take it to that team. There's no reason at all.
Completely agree. And then statistically, you should win that Thursday night game. 64% of the teams that travel on Thursday nights lose. Therefore, 64% of the teams at home win, which means the Packers are already starting out ahead. So you should win that game. So if you don't set the tone right away in the first 2 games of this season, in the first week of this season, this might be a really long, ugly season. But again, it's how you get from point A to point B. I can't just say, well, 10 wins and they're going to start the rebuild. It depends on how you get there. And what we saw at times out of this team was undisciplined things. What we saw at times out of this team was the injury caught up with them. But we did see wins. And it was the elite team. It was a team that won the Super Bowl. It was a team that won the division. And it was a team that just played their asses off. All 3 of those teams beat the Packers twice each. Vikings, Lions, Eagles. No other team beat them like that. The Bears beat them at Lambeau Field. That was the Bears' Super Bowl. And the Bears gave everything they had at home to start off the season with Caleb Williams. So I'm just kind of like, well, I'm not going to say yes. If the season goes bad and let's say they get 5 wins and they don't have injuries, there's going to be some people that are losing their jobs. Absolutely. But what Ed Policy had to say was, I'm not going to allow these guys to go in to the next season as lame ducks. In other words, this year you got to prove it, or we're going to make some changes. There's a lot of pressure on Russ Ball, Brian Gutekunst, and I would assume that Ed Policy already made that known between him and Mark Murphy coming into this year. I'm sure Ed Policy didn't just wake up, do an interview, and say, hey, these guys are basically on the clock. I'm sure that, Matt LaFleur already knew that. But, this is a guy that wants to put a stamp on an organization. You don't need to go out and do anything to put your stamp on an organization, remember. You can basically say, I'm going to be the guy that's going to keep it consistent. I'm not going to make a lot of waves. I'm not going to come in and be this guy that wants to do a cannonball in the pool to make my entrance. Just let success breed success. Just have your meetings, be that guy. Be the steward of the franchise. But if he needs to make a decision, there's pressure in year 1. Absolutely.
Which, by the way, that's how it would work at most of our places of work too.
Right.
New boss takes over. They take a period of time, a window of time to scope the place out and see what's up and gather information and learn and get a feel. That's how it should go. It's not like it's not like he's making them play out the last year of their deal. This is very precedented.
And here's one other thing to think about. And because one of the excuses have been over the last couple of years, well, they're the youngest team. I mean, to use the term rebuild, when you go back to Ryan and Manitowoc, to use the term rebuild, how in the hell can you rebuild when you're the youngest team to begin with? In other words, rebuild with what?
And to the Packers' credit, Goody has not used that as an excuse.
No.
But if it comes out as an excuse, I'll be sitting here thinking, okay, well, no one's making you be the youngest team in the league, dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a couple of years ago, we got it. You're moving off from Aaron Rodgers, made all the sense in the world. But for the 3rd straight year, if you guys are kind of young and dumb and you make all these mistakes and you go to the podium and say, well, youngest team in football, well, then why was that your strategy coming in this year?
Exactly.
No one's making you do that. That's not required of you.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. I mean, it's, and Goody even said last year, we can't use this as an excuse anymore. I mean, come on, stop it. I mean, that should be a positive, not a negative, that they're winning 10 and 11 games and they're still young. You can't use that as an excuse anymore. You got a lot of these guys that are 2 and 3 year guys. At what point do you become a veteran? You got to be through your first contract to be a veteran? Hell no. That's dumb. 877-867-1670, 877-867-1670. Let's do this. We'll talk a little baseball when we come back. This portion of the program brought to you by Sobelman's Pub and Grill. They've been around a long time in Milwaukee, getting it done on St. Paul Avenue, 25 plus years. Sobelman's, that is basically where you can go and get that big Bloody Mary that's got a meal on top of it, or you can get those really good burgers on those brioche buns. They have got this pounded out chicken sandwich that's like bigger than your head. It's huge. And I can't wait to get down there and try that. They've got on Waukesha on William Street as well, another location. That is Sobelman's Pub and Grill. Stop in, tell Dave and the whole crew we said hi. That is Sobelman's.
Sobelman.
Milwaukee and Waukesha.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
And now for the Pella play-by-play, here's Jeff Levering.
Thanks, Gina Della from Pella. What a beautiful day to have new windows and doors installed.
Every day is beautiful because Pella installs year-round during all seasons.
And as Pella goes into another windup, it's so hard to guess that next pitch. The customizations seem endless.
And it doesn't have to be super expensive. Pella has a product line for every budget.
And if it is time for a major upgrade, rest easy by scoring no interest and no payments for up to 2 years.
Pella also provides a free in-home consultation, which includes a no-obligation quote.
That's always a great play because working with one of Pella's design experts is such a wonderful, no-pressure get-together. I know this from experience.
With a range of affordable options and products assembled in the USA, you can get the look you want at a price you can afford.
And there's no reason to wait with this incredible deal going on.
Get no interest and no payment for up to 2 years.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Certain restrictions apply. 6/30/2025.
Bill Michaels will resume in 5 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 4 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Bob Nightingale. Now, last time we talked to Bob was a guy that was out at spring training talking about when Mark Antanasio said, let's just have some fun. And we'll talk with him this time.
Where did that come from?
I just because
that was awesome.
That was a steaming pan load. So that let's just have some fun. That's what it was. We're just here to entertain you. We're not here to win World Series. If it happens, it happens. Let's just provide a great space at American Family Field for entertainment and fun.
And
family fun.
And passion.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff. Well, lo and behold, you go all the way back to, what is it, May 23rd, 28th, something like that, and the Brewers have the best record in baseball. Joining us now on the hotline, the man that wrote that article back at spring training, which set a lot of people off, and now writes another article saying, don't count them out, because here they are again, Bob Nightingale from USA Today, baseball senior writer and Hall of Fame voter. Bob, how you doing?
Yeah, doing good. No, thanks.
So, we look at it as they've got good pitching. All of a sudden, the hitting has started to warm up. Christian Yelich, as the temperature gets warmer, he heats up as well. Some of the guys we started to count out are now producing, like guys like Joey Ortiz. Sal Frelick's been a work dog all season long. There's Durbin, there's Collins. I mean, just names you throw out there, and you don't know who they are, but they're contributing. How do you see this Brewers team?
Yeah, I mean, every year they're just exceed expectations. I mean, you think, okay, the Cubs are going to run away with this thing. Nobody else, the Reds did a little bit, and we really spending money. Cubs loaded up. And then here they are, just, two games back. It seems like every single year, we all want to count at the Brewers, and every single year, they're in the playoffs. So, they're really like the Tampa Bay Rays of the of the National League. It's just they have a small payroll and stuff, not as small as Tampa's, but they just win.
So we were trying to talk about this last week. Pitching wise, I get it. They were ones that invested in the pitching lab. They were ones that invested in really concentrating on the mechanics of pitchers and getting them better and honing their skills. And I understand all of that. How do we account for young guys that just continue to come up and contribute? And we all, there's a sabermetric that drives people nuts. It's the catching or hitting is contagious. And can we just account to that? Or is there something, is there some elixir that the Brewers have that others may not yet?
Yeah, I think it is some kind of elixir. I mean, those guys, it's not like they're getting hurt and stuff. They're, staying reasonably healthy. I know Woodruff had his surgery coming back, but feel like they develop as well, if not better, than just about every other team. To your point, these young guys come up and they're ready. You don't see them bouncing back and forth between the major leagues and the minor leagues. And when they come up, they usually have success pretty early.
I go back to when the Cubs hired Theo Epstein, and he got all the scouts together and said, this is going to be our philosophy, from the scout that's scouting internationally at the lowest level to a scout that's one of our pro scouts, out for scouting a lot of upcoming games and series, that they were going to have one steady message. It seems like the Brewers have kind of done that when David Stearns took over, and maybe they've just kind of gone in that direction. But I agree with you. It's like, how do you take a guy like Priester? I mean, even Pat Murphy said, when we made the trade for this guy, I didn't really expect this. And all of a sudden they work with him a little bit, and boom, next thing you know, he's throwing 7 shutout innings and he's the talk of the town. They just continually dig these guys up, and they're able to find them. And again, they haven't won anything yet. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but I did not see this coming, to be perfectly honest with you. You know what I mean?
No, I certainly didn't. And I don't think anybody did. One thing about the Brewers, too, is like when you mentioned the Cubs with Theo, I mean, they, deliberately tanked it for a few years. And just like Houston did, just like Baltimore did. You don't see them in Milwaukee. They're just, consistently, a good team. Consistently, in the playoffs where, you can match their resume pretty much against everybody, in the National League but the Dodgers.
With the Brewers, for a long time, we were talking about the trade deadline, buyers or sellers. And obviously now you'd probably be a buyer. But I went from thinking they need a third baseman with pop. They need a shortstop that can actually hit. They need, and now it's kind of like, well, maybe they just need a veteran bat. And that was suggested last week by one of the broadcasters that joined us, that maybe they just need a veteran bat that can come up in a clutch situation, that maybe's been there, done that. Is there that's out there that you can see? Because we're all going to start talking about the trade deadline heating up hot and heavy here in the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah, there's not that, those stud bats out there. There's no Juan Soto out there, that type of thing. Rafael Devers. Arizona's got a couple nice bats, in the infield, whether it's Eugenio Suarez at third base or Bo Naylor at first base. Those are two nice power bats, particularly Suarez. But I'm sure they'll get a lot of interest in Suarez. And I bet the price tag's high too.
Yeah. There is something to be said for a clubhouse chemistry, for lack of a better term. And one thing that I've noticed over the years, going back to when Craig Counsell was here, and now it's been extended when Murphy was here, was there was always a chemistry. There was no cliques. There was no like groups off in different corners. It's everybody kind of together, and everybody's kind of contributing, and everybody's laughing. Everybody's having, it's got like guys that genuinely enjoy coming to work every day, being with one another. And again, that's a metric you can't necessarily put an equation to, so to speak, but they've kind of created that here, where guys look forward to coming to the ballpark every day. They look forward to seeing each other every day. And I guess that's just a big tribute to both Counsell and to Murphy,
Yeah, no, I mean, you in the front office, making sure you get the right guys that come in, they're going to fit into the program. They love playing for Murphy. It's almost like that college baseball kind of attitude where, gives a, gets them fired up to play, and he, holds those guys accountable too. I mean, he hasn't been afraid to lash out at guys and say, hey, this is unacceptable, pulling guys from games. So I think certainly the veterans at clubhouse really respect that. Like, hey, you better play the way we expect, or you're going to be called out for it.
Talk about the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, probably are the closest fly in the ointment for the Milwaukee Brewers and the Cubs. As much as I like Cincinnati, they just at times just seemingly can't put it together on a consistent basis, even though they've kind of hung in there this year with Terry Francona giving them a little bit better guidance. I don't know if they're going to be able to fully turn it around this season, but maybe next season. So talk to me about the Cardinals and where you think the Cardinals are at.
I mean, the Cardinals are kind of like that movie Major League, where they're winning despite what the front office wants to do. They want to rebuild, and the whole spending money in the winter. Attendance is way down. They've been very vocal, like, okay, we're going to rebuild for the future here. Now I'm not sure how many guys they can trade off. I mean, they want to trade off their closer, Ryan Helsley, and different guys, and a few of their starters. I still don't believe they're going to last. I'm stunned how well they're playing. But at some point, I think expression sets in. And you're right, Cincinnati, they're a dangerous team. But, the funny thing is, you look at the NL Central compared to the NL West. It's possible now the NL West only has one playoff team. With the Dodgers, you could have a few coming up from the Central.
Yeah, at first we thought the Central was going to be the worst division, and all of a sudden now, win record-wise, they've really come on. Cincinnati getting 2 out of 3 over the Yankees, which was a little bit surprising in that sense. But I agree with you about the Cardinals. They were in, hey, let's just see if we can hang on, and then we'll just start tearing this thing down mode. And now they're in it. So what do you say to the fan base if you say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and still tear it down because we don't believe we're good enough to win it all? And that's the thing where the Brewers, we look at the Brewers and say, well, are they going to be good enough to get to the postseason, maybe even win the division? But are they really going to do anything in the postseason? And we were just talking about this before break. You go through that starting rotation with Peralta, with what they got in Mizorowski. Priester's been throwing the ball since they picked him up from Boston. I mean, Quintana's been surprisingly good. Chad Patrick's their weakest link, and he just threw some scoreless innings over the weekend. They've got a pretty good rotation, and Woodruff is on the way back. You know what I mean? So their pitching staff, I don't look at any series at this point and go, yeah, they really don't have a chance in this particular game because of this particular pitcher.
No, you're right. That's what wins in the postseason, is just that dominant pitching. A couple of years ago, nobody thought Texas Rangers were going to win the World Series with that team or the Arizona Diamondbacks. And they just, caught fire at the right time in October and stun everybody. So, same thing. We've seen time and time again, just get into the playoffs. And if you have the pitching, you can do that sort of thing.
The best team in the National League right now, is that still the Dodgers?
Yeah, still the Dodgers. I mean, the fact they're winning with all the pitching injuries, yeah, and the way the Mets have dropped off. Philadelphia is very streaky, so yeah, it's got to be the Dodgers.
Then where would we put the Brewers in that mix? So if you look at the Dodgers, you look at Philadelphia, you look at the Cubs, you look at the Mets. Is the Brewers like that 5th team right now in that tier? Or do you look at the Brewers and go, you know what, 47 wins, they've been streaking, they've got 22 out of their last 30. Are they better than Philadelphia? Are they better than New York at this point?
Certainly, you're going to say they're better than New York right now. I mean, New York just last 13, the last 16 games, and just got smoked by the Pittsburgh Pirates. So, I would definitely put them ahead of the Mets right now. Probably just barely below, what the Cubs are doing and what the Phillies are doing. But right there, I mean, if they had closed out yesterday's game, they would just been 1 game back.
Talking about the Cubs for a real quick minute, because obviously they got off to a good start and they've kind of kept pace. They're for as good as the Brewers have been, the Cubs have been just a couple of games less than what the Brewers have been throughout this stretch, but they're still playing winning baseball. They've got some incredible players down there. Crow Armstrong has been absolutely fantastic this season. But is this part of finally Craig Counsell, after a full season, getting his arms around the organization?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, they're going for it. I mean, when they signed, went and trade for Kyle Tucker, they made a big thing. Suzuki really started playing much better. And they got, good and some great starting pitching, particularly with the, Shota Imanaga, that lost their ace and Justin Steele. He's still doing this. So I just think it's a case where they kind of underachieved last year. I think for a while they kind of overachieved with that offense this year. And now they're playing about what I think people expected.
Bob, it's always great to talk to you. And as the season continues on, after the second half begins, we'll get back on and talk a little bit more about hopefully the Brewers continuing to win and pressing the Cubs at the top of the division. Okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Bill.
There you go. Bob Nightingale, USA Today senior baseball writer. Good stuff from Bob. Let's do this. We'll step out. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back and wrap up day 1 of this week. Not a bad way to get off to a fast and flying start. Talking a lot of Brewers baseball, some Packers football. Good stuff. More of the Bill Michaels Show next.
Covering Wisconsin sports like a blanket. This is the Bill Michaels Show on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Bill Michaels will resume in 3 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 2 minutes. Bill Michaels will resume in 1 minute. Bill Michaels will resume in 30 seconds.
Good to have you back. A couple minutes before we get out of here, and there's more between the Steelers and the Dolphins. Jalen Ramsey was traded from the Dolphins to the Steelers for Minka Fitzpatrick earlier today. Part 2 of this, the Dolphins are trading their tight end, Jonnu Smith, to the Steelers for a late-round pick swap as well. So the Steelers got Jalen Ramsey and now a tight end in Jonnu Smith. So they picked up a defensive player and an offensive player for basically Minka Fitzpatrick and a draft pick swap. And Smith is going to get a 1-year contract extension, $12 million in all of this. So Jonnu Smith, the tight end, is now a Pittsburgh Steeler. I look at the Steelers. I'm like, yeah, they got better. Okay, they picked up Jalen Ramsey, and yeah, they're pretty good in the secondary. And although you lose Minka Fitzpatrick, who was kind of that, he wasn't necessarily a Woodson type of player, but he was pretty solid when it came to coming off the edge and some of the more aggressive hitting plays that you like out of your secondary. But now they can
do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, kind of a jack of all trades. And now they pick up a tight end to bolster the offense a little bit and give them another weapon to throw to. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up panning out there in Pittsburgh for them. In the meantime, Brewers off today, back at it tomorrow, which is solid. Brewers are going to be taking on the New York Mets in New York. The Mets coming in as losers of 3 straight. They were at one point in time running away with the division. And since then, they have fallen back down to earth. They lost 2 out of 4 to the Braves. They lost. They got swept by the Pirates this past weekend. Man, they had a losing streak of 7 games. I think they lost a series to the Tampa Bay Rays. They lost a series to the Braves. They lost 2 out of 3 to the Phillies. They have been somewhat of a free fall for quite some time now.
They didn't just get swept by the Pirates. They lost 1-9, 2-9, and 1-12. They were outscored 30-4 over those 3 games.
They're beat up. So Brewers might be catching them at a really, really good time. So they'll be back at it again tomorrow night. Obviously, we're from the official, where everybody can start signing and free agency and such of the NBA. There's a lot of talk. I mean, Bobby Portis is coming back, and Brooke Lopez. We'll wait and see if he's actually back or not. There's some talk about whether or not he's going to move on from the Bucks. We'll have to wait and see. So we got all kinds of stuff that's going to be happening here in the next 24 hours, and we'll be back at it again tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be a really cool day. Mike Wangren, the drummer for the band Disturbed, is going to join us, among others. Chuck Freeman's going to be here. Jim Ozarski will be here to talk about NBA free agency. Yeah, we got a big one coming up tomorrow. Could be a fun show. Could be a fun show tomorrow on the program. Until we talk again, which will equate to basically 20 hours from now.